This is the second community live stream from BPG Games for Darkfall Rise of Agon. My name is Michael, and I am the community manager and the director of marketing, as well as one of the game designers on the team. I am joined here by Brad, who is our director of development, as well as TJ, who is our lead game logic developer. Why don't you guys say hello?
Hello.
Greetings.
So we're going to start off today by doing a little bit of a 2-week recap since we launched on May 5th. We'll be going over some statistics, addressing some of the concerns that have been brought up, as well as catch everybody up to speed up to present day. And then from there, we're going to start answering some questions from you guys from the live stream. So I would ask for the time being to hold your questions until we get through this recap, just so that we don't miss any. All right? So as everybody knows, we launched on May 5th. It was quite a astounding showing for us on day one. Both of our websites, as well as the game server, was hit rather hard, as I'm sure you guys are well aware. And despite the initial stress tests that we held, we saw it was roughly over 10 times the amount of people that were signed on at one time compared to the highest peak that we did during either of our stress tests. And because of this, unfortunately, as many of you guys know, we encountered some issues with server crashing due to game logic issues, as well as some other crashes that were from the server configuration side of things. TJ and the development team were able to address a lot of the game logic issues within the first couple of days that were causing crashes, but there was a couple lingering issues from the server configuration side that caused over the first week and a half the server to continue to crash on occasion each day. Now, over the past 4 days, we haven't had any server crashes, knock on wood. We feel that we may have addressed the last few lingering issues that were causing the server to crash. And we thank all of you guys for your patience while we address these issues, as well as all the frustrations I know that some of you guys encountered with the rollbacks and some of the inconveniences along those lines. One of the things that we wanted to bring up and address right away is the concerns that were raised due to some of the people that were trying to utilize server crashes to duplicate items. This indeed did occur in some regards, but we not only received many reports from individuals, but through our monitoring tools, we're also tracking some potential malicious behavior that we encountered. So with that said, we were able to actually utilize our new persistence tools to track some offenders who were utilizing the server crashes in order to duplicate certain items. And not only were we able to remove those items from the game economy, but also track down the offenders and permanently ban their accounts and any accounts that were associated with them. These are permanent bans. We take this type of transgression extremely seriously. I want to make sure that I strongly emphasize that point, because it's, I get that there are people that may be concerned that there was damage done to the economy that is not recoverable, and I want to ensure everybody that that is not the case. We see all statistics of items that are generated, whether it's through harvesting or killing monsters, whether it's from crafting. We track all of those statistics, and we're able to see that outside of the offenders that we punished, there was not any sort of grave damage done to the economy. That said, to be completely honest, that does not mean that there might not have been a few individuals who capitalized off of the server crashing, but if that was indeed the case, it was very, very low amounts of resources, especially when it comes to any sort of rare or very valuable resource. And in order to quell some of the concerns that we've received of people having a lot of crafters in the game, as an example, that benefited from this, we wanted to go through some statistics with you guys to give you a little bit of a rundown. These are pulled from our persistence data, because not only can we see how many items are in the game world, whether it's in clan banks or personal banks or people's backpacks, or when we eventually release the housing system, house banks as well. We can see all the items that are in existence, as well as, like I mentioned, how many items have been crafted by, whether it's a particular weapon or piece of armor or a potion. And on top of that, the actual crafting skills of every single person in the game. So with that said, let's go through some of these statistics here when it comes to crafting. Let me just bear with me while I pull this up. So right now in the game world, there are 75 people with weaponsmithing mastery. And out of those 75 individuals, there's only 3 that have a skill level of 50 or higher. No one has reached 75 at this point, and there's nobody who has reached 100. With armor smithing, there's only 50 people who have armor smithing mastery, and nobody has above 50 at this point in time. Now, this data was taken from a couple hours ago, so I'm assuming that it's still up to date. With alchemy mastery, there's only 2 people in the game world with alchemy mastery. There's nobody currently with engineering mastery or warhulk construction. There are 27 people with cooking mastery. There's only 1 individual who just recently reached shipbuilding mastery. There's currently only 6 players in the game world that have 75 or higher smelting, and nobody has reached 100 yet. For staff crafting, there's only 16 individuals in the game world that have staff crafting mastery. Nobody's above 50 plus. There are 58 people with boilery mastery. And there's only 1 individual on the entire server who has enchanting above level 75. So those are just some statistics of crafting and people's crafting skill levels, but it gives you an idea that out of all the players in the game world, there's very few right now who actually have any sort of mastery. And from looking at the data, a lot of these people are coming from larger clans that are pooling resources to try to get those skill levels up. Now, some other metrics to go over here with you guys are some of the statistics that have changed since launch when it comes to our player base as well. We have had consistently around 1,500 concurrent players since the game world launch, and that number has been staying rather steadily even after free trials have ended that we passed out in the beginning, and even assuming that a lot of these players are encountering some of the previous server issues that we mentioned. Outside of that, one thing that I did want to bring up as well before we start answering questions is in regards to server lag. I know that you guys have been reporting some issues with some delays and some desyncs as well as just some ping instability. We have new hardware that has been on order for a couple weeks now, and it's arriving this upcoming Tuesday. These will be configured so that our entire persistent system can be located on a separate server cluster, which will take a lot of the load off that you guys are currently encountering in the game world, because what's happening is due to the way that we save data, it occurs on a certain frequency, and because we want to ensure that we can alleviate as many concerns with rollbacks or possibilities of any other potential issues with items or along those natures, that's the reason why we've had to increase the time frame that we're saving, and that's the reason why you guys are currently encountering some lag. We hope that once these servers get configured, that it will address the issue, but obviously on our end, it is imperative that we get everything stable so that you guys know that when you log on and play, you don't have to be concerned about sporadic server crashes or lag and ping spikes that affect your gameplay. Okay, so that's kind of the quick and dirty 2-week rundown. I know the developers have been very busy dealing with any bugs that have occurred since launch, and with a much higher testing pool than we saw through any time during early development prior to launch. We've been able to uncover a couple of areas that we've been able to address either through our hot fixes and some of the patches we've had over the next couple of days, or on some of the things that we're currently working on to address some concerns, such as some deficiencies that are currently in game when it comes to the alignment system, and some other areas, such as new player guidance, where we can expand on, etc. So with that said, why don't we start taking some questions? I'm going to wait until we get a handful here, and then we'll start answering them.
No questions at all? Except for the ones I answered already in chat.
I think there's some in the housing thread I can answer too. Just need to find it. Uh-oh, I think I screwed up.
It's something that I'll bring up about the whole duping and the stuff, I guess. a lot of the worry and complaint was that we didn't know it was happening, and we didn't react until somebody posted about it, when the reality is we have known that restart dupes can happen since, I don't know, 10 years, right? It's been possible forever. But our biggest goal for that was to stop the crashing. And that's what we primarily focused on. We have the statistics, we had everything we needed to go back and look up. So we weren't worried about catching people who were really taking advantage of it. And that's why it seemed to take so long to take care of it, because we wanted to make sure the crashing was done first. Kilrain is talking.
And that's actually another important point. The reason why, as an example, we were removing threads on the possibility of a item duplication exploit is because we were, in the middle of trying to investigate who might be possible offenders, and we had a lot of reports on some people that we were able to look into. Although, as TJ had just said, we also were consistently monitoring everything and our metrics because we knew that it was possible this was to be happening. In any situation like that, we have no intention to try to bring attention to a possible exploit that we are made aware of. And that's not only to try to reduce the possibility of others getting wind of it to utilize it, but it gives us the ability to actually do investigations into certain individuals without them catching wind of it. And this is very important to us because once things start getting publicized and a lot of attention gets brought to it, people who might be offenders of the particular exploit or something along those lines might be able to try to cover their tracks. Even though we have the capability to track what items go where, it still will make our job a little bit more difficult. So by keeping things under wraps, we were able to really focus in on the people that we saw were offenders, gather all the data that we needed to make sure that we were making the right decision, and then go through with our permanent bans and removal of the items in question. All right.
And to add to that real quick, as far as the being able to dupe when servers crash, that is almost completely eliminated, and come Tuesday should be completely eliminated anyway. So the possibility of it even occurring by chance, if the servers happen to crash, will be gone. So it's not a big deal.
All right, so we've gotten a bunch of questions here. I'm gonna start pulling some as I see here. So if I miss yours, I apologize, and just make sure to post it again. Mad Cow asked about voice over IP. It's a possibility. It's actually something that we've talked about internally, and there's some possible options that we're looking into. If we were to go down the route of voice over IP, it would certainly be something that we would ensure we'd have a lot of control over, because there's a lot of ways that people could potentially ruin the game experience of others if we don't put restrictions. And on top of that, we have to also ensure that it doesn't cause any issues when it comes to the performance of the server and people's ping and everything. But it is something on the radar. I mean, obviously, it'd be really awesome to be able to have in-game voice over IP capabilities, especially when you interact with somebody that you don't know or that you're not familiar with, because it can certainly help shift the type of dynamics that may occur currently in game when you first encounter somebody. Let's see here. When are the deployable towers coming? Can you explain how they work and what's the radius of them and how many can we have up? Do you want to take the lead on this one, TJ, since you're focusing on that?
Sure. So right now I need to obviously go back through and focus really hard on flagging, alignment, that type of thing. Shouldn't take a whole long time, but the primary focus first beyond that is going to be player vendors. And then after that, I'll focus on the control towers. And now I have a doc somewhere that kind of explains some of the things, but it's not completely finalized. But the gist of it is going to be an overhead view would be a clan picks a city, and then they construct this control tower, and then they go into neighboring tiles and place the control tower somewhere within that tile, and they claim ownership of it. That means that whatever rules that apply to the city also apply to the tile. As of right now, that includes city bonuses and lawless effects. And So some of the advantages to doing this, obviously, are the city bonuses, which aren't overly, powerful, but they help. And then we'll also looking at we have a cache that's going to go in there, and there's going to be maintenance fees, right? So it's not going to be free once you get this thing put up. And so anybody who farms or harvests or does activities within that tile will generate some sort of resource for the clan, and it'll go into that cache. Now, this cache is vulnerable at certain times of the day, and well, not necessarily certain times of the day, but say like when it gets full. So you can't loot it or anything until it's full. Once it's full, it goes vulnerable for X amount of time. During that time, anybody can go up to it and damage it and take the stuff. We'll likely have it to where you can damage it with anything but siege gear, grenades, hammers, things like that will be the quickest way to get into it. So let's say the defending clan can go ahead and defend it, or nobody damages and loots it. Then at the end of that timer, the loot is automatically transferred into the clan bank. So what you can do is you can extend this territory one control tower at a time as you go away from your city, right? So you place a tower to the right of your city, the tile right of your city, and then you can go to any tile that touches that one as well and extend beyond that. So you can either encircle your city, or you can go, one direction or whatever. You can kind of just build it that way, at least as of right now. And so the goal will be to extend your territory out to the good spawns, so that you can claim better resources in your cache and stuff. So that's kind of the rundown of it. And of course, like, let's say you create a line straight out from your city and somebody comes in and destroys that control tower. That's another possibility. And so you no longer have control of it. So what you've done is the other team has disconnected your remaining territories. You still control those, but you would no longer get city buffs on those. And any loot that is generated into the resource cache is not immediately transferred into the clan bank. So if you create a line directly out from your city, somebody comes in and severs that line, you have to go to that resource cache manually and carry the loot back, unless you place another tower within that missing link. And that's just kind of a broad overview. There are a lot of other things we want to tie into it, like, and we'll probably discuss it with the community as it goes in, like, maybe the more towers you own and stuff, the more defensive your city becomes. So it's harder to take. Because one of the things that we hate, not necessarily all of us, but I know myself for sure, is you put a lot of work into a city, and then somebody comes in and just takes it, and then there's no repercussions for them. It's all bonus, right? So I think making cities more defensible by doing that would really help, and especially when you have like the larger clans that maybe aren't as good at PvP, they can use their talents, their ability to craft, and their love of crafting and farming and stuff like that to build up the defenses of the city, rather than just some small group coming in and taking it over. It's much more difficult for them to do.
All right, let's see what else here that we got.
1 second. No, those control towers are not zap towers. Oh, something else I want to point out too that I thought would be really cool is to be able to take and place localized banks within your owned tiles. So, like, let's say you expand your territory to pretty far away from the city, you can put a little bank in there, but it's not global. So it's not. So you can just run back and bank, but then you still have to transfer it back to your city. Things like that, and they're all just destructible little pieces and walls and things like that, like miniature hamlets in the future. But for initially, it'll just be like the tower, the cache, fight, defend, expand your territory kind of stuff. All right, I'm done with that for now, unless there's more questions.
I'm sure there will be. Let's see what else there is here. I have to scroll back because there's been a lot of comments.
No one's helping you out, Michael, and collecting them?
Sure, if you're able to. Will there be a fix for the bag bug? I know it's certainly on our radar. I don't know if either of you guys want to tackle that one, Brad or TJ.
Sorry, I didn't. What's that?
The
bag bug?
Yeah, we'll fix it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's one of those things where Brad went through and did a bunch of work basically simulating what the cache clear script did that I can't remember who made it. Anyway,
Nasatar.
yeah, and it's still what it ended up doing was basically destroying chat far too often, so it wasn't really a logical choice.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that would have. I mean, it does have something to do with it, but it's not the whole deal. So, problem is with when you clear that out, you lose your chats, bank positions. So I really had to end up disabling most of the functionality of the thing. I do want to probably put a button in somewhere in the UI options that will just basically perform a cleaning on that GUI, but there's still some underlying bug which is causing this anyway. The bag bug is different than the GUI bug. There's two different things going on. The bag bug, thankfully, can be it's not as bad as it used to be, just because you can drop the bag on the ground and quickly pick it back up. So there's at least that for the meantime until we fix it.
All right, I can take the marketing question here by SNS Gaming. Any marketing plans or creative ways to bring new players? The marketing team hasn't stopped since we launched. I mean, we still are going to be continuing on with marketing plans all throughout the game's development. Our launch marketing campaigns were actually very successful. We saw, from a metric standpoint, an immense amount of people coming to the website, checking out our forums, following us on Twitter and Facebook, even here on Twitch. Our Origin PC computer giveaway that we did, I think Kuzi was in channel earlier, who helped organize that with me. That actually had 90,000 entries that occurred during the time that it was live, and we'll be announcing the winner soon. We actually reached out to touch base with the people who did win. So yes, we're going to be continuing all of our marketing efforts, both from a digital marketing standpoint. We're going to be doing things like this stream as an example, trying to make sure that we can stay engaged with you guys in the community. And we'll also be, making sure that we can do community events in game as well to try to create a stronger community presence when it comes to these type of things. And I guess in regards to how you guys can help us, the big thing is just getting the word out there about Darkfall Rise of Agon. And I think what's most important if you're bringing people into the game is to help them out. We know that there's still deficiencies in the new player experience when it comes to player guidance. Some of the newer tasks coming in are going to help educate new players in some of the basics, like how to craft things like arrows, how to create a skill book or a spell scroll, things along those nature. And we also have to expand the amount of resources that people have at their fingertips in terms of information, both on the in-game tutorial that we put together, which definitely needs to be expanded on, as well as other avenues such as a wiki that will have all the information that the community can pull together and things along that nature. Let's see here. Cotton Eye, how are you doing, man? Cotton Eye Joe asked, ETA on houses, amount of resources, cost associated with housing in Rise of Agon. I'll let you handle that one, Brad, at least since you're taking the lead on that anyway, if you want to go into some specifics and an estimated timeline.
As far as the deeds being put back into the game with crafting, shouldn't be too long, honestly. I have everything basically working on local. We've just been kind of holding off until we get through the initial launch process and stuff like that, and then kind of set up a proper patch cycle. So it'll be in the first one, definitely. As far as specifics, it's going to take a good amount of resources. I'm obviously not going to throw out exact numbers. It will take some resources that currently exist. It will take some that you guys don't know about yet that are newly created resources, and you're going to have to collect them in a variety of ways, both kind of like through harvesting, through farming, and through exploring as well. So it's going to take an effort, and basically how it's going to work is, if you want a cottage deed, then you're going to collect the mats for there's a new item. It's going to be called the deed draft, and you collect the items required to make the deed draft, and that's the same for all. So deed draft is just a generic piece of paper that doesn't have the seal on it. And then from there, there's going to be a new housing module that you kind of need a certain number of them for each to actually create each deed, and then you also need a seal, which is also crafted, that you will stamp the deed with, and then that's it. Then you have a deed, and that's how it'll work.
And you asked a question here, Uvixo. Will it require a clan, or can it be possible for solo players? It most certainly will be possible for solo players. And that's because of the way in how you can acquire these resources. It may take you longer, obviously, than a clan pulling together all the resources to try to get a few deeds themselves. But definitely solo players will be able to have access to the same kind of resources as clans. So even if you're by yourself, you'll be able to get access to all these different resources. It may take you longer, and it may be a little bit more challenging, but it's going to be definitely plausible, because obviously that is one of the big concerns with this system. And I think it's important to note that this system itself is going to also utilize some of our mechanics that Brad's been working on, such as regionalized harvesting and the dynamic spawning mechanics that we've been enhancing. So, we're excited about the system. We're hoping to be able to get it in as soon as we can, maybe even as early next week, as Brad mentioned. But we feel it's gonna drive a new market for a lot of resources and be something of a long-term goal for a lot of you guys to work towards.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun, actually. I'm hoping that there's going to be a few different components to it, and obviously there'll be a trade market for all these new components. So it should be cool. And I'm going to be adding more housing. I added a new house last night. It's obviously not patched into live yet, but every time I get a chance, I'll add a house here and there, expand on stuff, and just keep going.
Okay, so a couple of things real quick, I guess as a follow-up to that. Just looking at a couple of the questions here. So what skill will be required? It's going to be construction. We mentioned that in our update last night. That's the profession that you're going to be able to craft all these different items. Let's see here.
Just to answer Cotton Eye Joe's question real quick, the skill required will be construction. That will basically be the primary reason for construction once the houses come back.
Will the game be on Steam? We most certainly look to get it on Steam in the future. We have some things we want to accomplish first before we do so. As you guys are all very well aware, first impression is very critical on a Steam release, and there's some things we still want to get in game, some new content, and fleshing out a couple of the areas of the new player experience before we do so. But that is definitely on the radar, and once we get to that point in time, we will certainly give you guys updates on that. Another question that I've seen here asked multiple times is in regards to the in-game map. Are we going to enhance the in-game map? Are we going to provide more information, etc.? So why don't I let TJ handle that, since he'll be the one more than likely to be working on it. Do you want to take the reins on that, TJ?
Yeah, I mean, we have to improve the map. I mean, there's no doubt about it. How we go about doing the specific details, we're not entirely sure. Some of us don't want to put monsters just directly on the map. I think it would be more of a sandbox nature to allow players to discover things and have them placed on the map type of thing. But yeah, there's definitely going to be a revamp. I've been continually working on the GUI as we kind of go along, and there's just an endless amount of work that still needs to be done to it. But as specifically for the map, I mean, yeah, I want to have overlays that display different types of information, especially the newbie zones, because it's not just for newbies anymore. Any type of, if we decide to expand on the different alignment for different territories and locations and the different effects that they have, we'll have to put that on the map. Monsters, like I said, it'll probably be a discovery-based system where as you go to a spawn, you learn where it's at on the map, and then There will be other things tied to discovery
Almost
as well.
like like a auto discovery type of annotation.
Right. It's not much different than the Fog of War, except that it doesn't cover the map. It's just the points of interest get released as you move around the map, kind of thing. I personally think that's the best way to go about it. We just throw it all on there, and it's just like, I don't know. You lose that sense of discovery.
Yeah, people look at the map to see what's new instead of actually going out into the world.
Exactly.
FUSTV asks, how likely is it the new servers will fix the lag issues? Our team that is involved in the server configuration and optimizing that feels confident that it's going to help quite a lot. If we end up implementing this new hardware on Tuesday and we still encounter issues, then obviously we will circle back to see what else is remaining to address them. We're not going to be satisfied until that's completely an issue that you guys all feel is in a good spot, both in stability of the server, when it comes to no concerns of crashing sporadically, which hopefully at this point we've addressed, and now with what you guys are currently encountering, the delays and some of the desyncs. So we'll not be satisfied until that's to our liking.
So to touch on desyncs and the server stuff, right? When we first started, we had implemented a few features for persistence, like how often we save and how things were saved. And that ended up causing a severe amount of lag in the first couple of days. And we didn't really want to get rid of it. So one of the things that we started doing, and so let me explain that the current persistence that we have is sharing the same CPU as one of the Game Logic servers, okay? And the reason why that lag right then happened as bad as it did is because we were saving a lot. And so you had Game Logic, which runs the instructions on when and how to save, and then you have the persistence itself doing the saving process, which is eating up CPU, both of them. And that's why we had such extremely bad lag. Most people had it. And then we changed some settings on the saving, which allowed the Game Logic to run smoother. But then we were still getting some desync here and there with specific nodes. And it's all tied into that, having the CPU running the persistence as well as the Game Logic. And so when we get this new server in, we will shift the persistence over to that solely. And so that it can have all the resources it needs. And that way, that'll give us a really good picture of what resources it actually takes to run it. And then Game Logic will be back to normal and just doing its own little thing. Now, there are more tweaks on top of that we can do. One of the things that we also did to help improve performance during that time, because we were trying to save continuously, was we reduced the FPS on the servers. And so when we have been re-increasing those, and I don't think that we have made it back to the point where we were during beta as far as FPS goes. I'm not sure. I'd have to consult with Neil on that. But that is something that will probably go back up again once we've purchased the new servers and transferred persistence over to it as well. So I mean, there's a lot to it. It gets much more fine than that. And once we get the servers, once we have persistence on the new system, there's still a possibility that we're going to experience a little bit of lag. Some of that could be the FPS on the server. Some of that could be the fact that because of how Game Logic handles the saving, and there's still a lot of tweaks that we can do. One of those includes the old persistence. We still have it, and we're still using it. And unfortunately, because we're still using it, and we're not using it in a sense that that's what we read off of. There's just some fine tuning that needed to get done before we completely get rid of it. And I just haven't had time to do that yet. So once we can completely get rid of the old persistence, then we can change the process and how things are saved, and that will actually improve as well. But yes, so the gist of it is getting the new server is going to help, guaranteed, but there's still more room for improvement.
All right, I'm going to go through a couple of these questions that have come up over the past few minutes. How many people are currently playing? I said in the beginning we have on average about 1,500 concurrent users on the game server. There's obviously a lot more people playing than that number. That's just how many people are on the server at one given time. What are you doing about gold farmers? We actually get reports on gold farmers and investigate their activities, and we've been banning accounts that we have found are involved in that activity. If you guys know of anybody who's potentially gold farming, you're always encouraged to submit a support ticket because we investigate anything and everything that we receive. And that's, you guys have been very helpful since launch in helping track down some of those people that, we may not see promoting things in chat right away. So we greatly appreciate it. Let's see here. Will you increase mob spawns or housing spots? As Brad said, we certainly will be increasing housing spots. He actually added 1 or 2 recently that will probably go live whenever we patch next. But this is something that we can consistently expand upon, throughout the game's lifespan. Now that we have the world builder under control when it comes to our knowledge of it and its capabilities, we'll be able to place housing plots out in the world in areas that make more sense or make sense, as well as expand on certain areas of the game world where we can increase the amount of housing plots that there are. And then I guess with mob spawns, then obviously, yes, we're going to be adding mob spawns where we see fit. We have our champion mob spawns that we implemented, which we'll continuously to enhance. And then we also have the unique mobs that are named mobs that spawn out in the world that we'll be adding to as well. And that doesn't mean that things like new dungeons or brand new monsters are out of the question, because they're certainly not. Well, those are things that we'll focus on when we have time to do so. Right now, we have a lot of other things that we're currently putting priority to outside of that.
Yeah, to speak on the mob spawns a little bit, we haven't really added any new ones. Kind of ones that AV didn't place, but we have changed quite a few what is spawning, percentages of the spawns, and we'll continue to do that as well as probably add new ones. But AV didn't do a bad job of placing the spawns. There's not too many places where you think, oh, a spawn should be here, but there's definitely some.
All right, here's a couple more. Yernan DF asks, when can we expect our legendary rewards, other founder pack items? Everybody should have their Nithron coins that they got on their founder pack, whether it's a legend or a hero founder pack. The item that we have to implement is the legendary founder's blade, which I don't know if TJ or Brad, you have an update on that, but I know that we're trying to get it in game as soon as we can.
Yeah, so the server issues that we had just pushed everything back, and it was a slap in the face. So we'll get that, I promise. It's just time. It's just another one of those things that got pushed back a little bit. We'll have to prioritize it and get it in there for you guys.
As you can see, I am displaying it on the stream right now. It's in the game. It's just not in your hands.
Yeah, it's just a matter of putting in the logic so that the correct people get it and not everybody.
Yeah, we're gonna get it in game, and we know that you guys are eager to have it. Those of you who have legend packs. So again, we apologize for the delay. These server issues that we encountered at launch, as well as some of the game logic issues that came up, have taken precedence, unfortunately. I think also the same thing goes with the game time token. I think that's scheduled to be released early next week as well, hopefully Monday or Tuesday. And once we get that first item in game, which is going to be able to allow you to use Nithron coins to buy a token that will give you 30 days of game time to your account, we'll be expanding on other items for you guys to use. We know that some of you guys have bought some nice Nithron coin packages, and we appreciate all of your support. We'll certainly get you guys items to use those coins for. It's one of the priorities that we have right now on our side. So just give us a little bit of time, and we'll get it in game for you guys.
And while we're on that subject, since Mad Cow just asked about having to have the leaf blade in order to use it, I think what we'll end up doing is having it as an additional thing inside the. I don't know. I guess that's one of the things we need to decide, whether we want to put it in the thing in this as a choice, or just have it in your bag at all times. I don't know.
Honestly, we started implementing it, we just kind of didn't finish it, but the idea is it'll just be another starter weapon that will be on the vendor if you're a legendary account, and then you can just grab it whenever you want, or you can take it off. Obviously it will take the place of the founder's sword, though.
Will there ever be cosmetics added to the game to change mount or gear appearance? I'm going
That's
to
the
be
idea.
Yeah, I'm going to be careful how I answer this because yes, there will be, but we're not going to go the route where you'll have a skin that will completely cover your weapon so that other people can't see what it is, or with your armor. We want to make sure that people are still able to identify what you're wielding, what you're wearing, so that they can make a strategic choice on how they're going to engage with you. One of the things that occurred in one of the prior games was that the skins basically completely changed the look of the item that you were wearing, no matter what weapon or piece of armor you had. And we don't want to go that route because it doesn't allow players the ability to identify what their opponents and what their competition are wielding.
Yeah, we'd much rather want to go the kind of consumable route, like someone mentioned in chat, like dyes and stuff like that, that will change a specific item, and you buy a certain number of them, and then they're consumed, and it's not necessarily, like Michael said, just changing the visuals of the game.
Rising Legacy asks, will the siege system and its mechanics, specifically having to wait around forever for the action, be changed? Yes, absolutely. I think that's something that everybody on the team strongly agrees is of high importance, and it's probably going to be one of the first major content pieces that we focus on after we get through player vendors and the control towers. Does that sound like an accurate statement, Brad and TJ? You guys want to expand on that at all?
I guess not.
Well,
sorry, I'm sidetracked.
Yeah, Brad is working in game on some things. I can say this: we've had a lot of discussions on the fact that it's really not intuitive that attackers during a siege have to play defense for so long, and the defenders during a siege are on the offense in the beginning to try to take down siege stones. There's a lot of different ideas that we've tossed around, such as being able to set up siege camps or having the ability to have more of a tug-of-war mechanic that is going to allow the attackers to actually attack and the defenders to potentially just be on the defense. But we will certainly be opening up threads for you guys to get your feedback on once we start to tackle this specific aspect of the game. Because this definitely, affects a lot of things when it comes to player, city, and hamlet ownership, as well as politics. And it's an area that we feel we can certainly expand on to make a lot more fun and more engaging for you guys. And actually, one of the changes to the cost of housing modules and what it takes to destroy them was done as kind of a preface to being able to focus on that system in the future. The Karate Kid asks, can the game token be sold for in-game money? Yes, you can trade the game token for any item, but as it stands right now, it is droppable on death. So keep in mind that you can trade it for other items, but it's got the same risk versus reward as any other item in game.
When you purchase a store item, it goes into your bank, by the way, not your backpack.
Halen asks, can you track character progression playtime? Yes, we can. We know how long people have been playing, and like I said, the new persistence system gives us a lot of data on what players are doing in game, the status of the economy, really a numerous amount of metrics, and we're consistently expanding on that and providing more tools to automate some of those things to give us more insight. It's not going to be something that we're going to probably stop enhancing for any time soon, because it provides information that we previously had no insight into when we first got the game code. Woody NL asks, what about quests? We're going to be, as I mentioned in the update last night, we're going to be releasing our first set or first batch of new tasks probably next week. These are going to be focused similar to some of the tasks that you guys currently have. It's going to be expanding on the amount of monster types that there are to reach out to and to go, fight for rewards. More harvesting tasks. We're going to be implementing some crafting tasks as well to start that process. So they're going to follow along the same kind of structure as the current tasks in game, but this is only the first batch. Once we get through getting a good amount of those kind of tasks in game for you guys to work towards, we're going to start expanding on more mechanics. I mean, essentially how the system works is once we develop a way to track a certain activity, we can start expanding on those kind of tasks. As an example, we can always do daily, weekly, monthly tasks that are repeatable. We can do things that are tied to lore that trigger when you go to a certain location or when you do a certain action. There's many different things that we have the option to do. It's just a matter of developing the mechanics tied on the tracking it. Right now, we're tracking all monster kills, we're tracking all skill progression, tracking things like harvesting, etc. And once we expand on the kind of metrics that we can track, we'll be able to enhance the complexity of the tasks that we implement. Now, I know that this is TJ's baby, since he developed this kind of from the get-go and did the design of it. So I don't know if you have any other comments you want to bring into the conversation.
No, not on the tasks. That was a pretty good overview. But as far as the quests in game, which I think he was alluding to the quests right over the tasks, is that we don't have any current plans to adjust any of them. We may go back through and look at their rewards or something in the future, but as far as implementing new quests, there are no real plans for that. I'm not saying we won't, and I think largely because of coming up with them and writing them and stuff. So I mean, if we had someone writing quests or something, then sure. I even had my brother-in-law and a friend of mine try to write up some quests, but I never heard back because I think it would be cool to put some in-depth actual quests in. But no, there's no future plans for those. But like Michael says, we're expanding the task system exponentially, and we're going to go with that for a long time.
Sequel asks, when are the sealed chests from Champions phones going to be able to be unlocked? I'm going to plead the fifth on that one. I don't know if
I could speak a little on it. Soon.
Soon. Yeah, there you go.
I was
There's
just
your answer.
discussing what is going to be in them with someone on the team this morning. So it'll be soon.
Yeah, so you got to keep in mind one of the reasons we put that thing in there was because we couldn't decide on, at the time when we were ready to launch, we couldn't decide the best thing to go in there. And we really want to make it worthwhile. We don't want to make it too overpowered, but we want to make it worthwhile. And we also want, and no matter what we decide to do in the interim, we're going to expand on the loot, on the champions and the named mobs to get some really cool rare stuff that doesn't exist. And so that's another thing too. We need to create some new stuff for that. And I'm not saying you won't be able to turn it in for some cool rewards soon just because we want to create new stuff, but it will expand even more later, I'm sure.
SNS Gaming asks, can you guys add new skills or rare spells attainable only as loot from a named mob or something like that? I'm not so much sure in regards to new skills and spells when it comes to PvP and PvE combat, but I can say that we have plans to add unique crafting recipes and other rare, unique items on things like task completion and other activities that you would do out in the world, whether it's a champion spawn or killing a unique mob, etc. So yes, we do plan on expanding things that are unique. I think that's something that the entire team agrees is an area we can greatly enhance and add new items and resources to, but it's important to note that for the time being, until we get to our combat-focused patch, which we have talked about in the past, we're really not looking to add any new spells or skills at the moment. Rather, go through the current list of existing ones and make sure that they're all valuable and people, have choices in regards to what kind of skill selection that they want to run with when they're out in the field fighting people. Let's see here. Will you be putting in-game cosmetics on hard monsters, or will they just be purchasable in Nithron coins? I think at the start we're just going to have them purchasable in Nithron coins, but that doesn't mean that we won't have them able to be acquired in-game as well. I think it's important to have a good balance between that. So if you don't want to spend Nithron coins, there's still potentially ways to get them in-game. not necessarily all the items that we have in the Run Coin shop will be attainable through in-game methods, but I do think, as an example, if we have dyes added on the cosmetic shop, because we are looking to implement a armor and weapon dyeing system, then there may be some rare, unique dyes that are only attainable in the cash shop, and maybe some others that you can get in game, just as an example. Has anyone asked when a patch will change polearms? I don't think so. Again, I'm going to circle back to when we shift gears and focus more on combat itself, which is going to tie into armor smithing and tailoring. It'll also address and focus in on the current in-game specializations like Destroyer, Indestructible, and will be changes to those as well. So again, we will certainly, when we get to that point in time where we can put our focus into it, we're going to be making threads and having conversations with you guys on how best to get those changes implemented, because obviously it affects such a critical aspect of the game. PvP QQ asks, hidden and secret content. Could this happen again? Yes, absolutely.
What does he mean again?
Adventuring back during Darkfall Online did implement on a few occasions some things that were somewhat hidden that people could go out and find. But yes, to answer your question, absolutely. I mean, our Wilderness Portal Network is an example to start off with of implementing a lot of things for people to go out and try to find. And you guys have certainly gone out and explored and found a lot of those Wilderness Portals already. But, you know, there's a lot of things that...
There's probably, I would say, more than 10 portals that aren't on that community map yet.
Yeah, so there's still things that are either currently still hidden or people are keeping the information for themselves. But we will definitely expand on that to other areas, whether it's involved in completing more complex tasks and getting unique rare items, or exploring certain locations that have actual meaning to them rather than just looking cool, or even our dynamic spawning system. One of the things that I've mentioned in the past that we're excited about is with the new mechanics that Brad put together, we're able to control the amount of resources that are spawning and where they're spawning. And what I mean by that is, let's say that we decide to implement a couple of new unique rare chests, and let's say these chests only spawn once or twice in the game world at a time, and or spawn in only certain locations. We have the capability now to do that, and we can either tie it to tasks, we can tie it to quests, we can tie it just to going out and trying to acquire resources for specific crafting goals or endeavors. There's a lot of things that we can do on that end that we will certainly expand upon. The game world's rather large, as you guys all know, so it's a matter of just ensuring that we can fill in the areas of the game that are somewhat lacking, whether it's lack of content, either be mobs or a chest, etc., or there's just really no use for that area outside of aesthetics.
Someone keeps asking in chat about lean meat and the availability of it. Yeah, we'll be adjusting it. We're adjusting the economy all the time based on what we see in persistence and what's there's not a lot of relative to other items, and really. And someone else asked more details about the changes we're making because he went to a troll spawn and couldn't tell what the difference was. Well, the difference probably wasn't very much. Is basically what it is. I mean, a small percentage change on a loot table can make a big difference when thousands of are being farmed a day. So what you don't see as a change, I mean, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. This isn't old Darkfall where there's a loot table and it never changes through the history of the game.
Can you guys put delay quest giver in player city to increase their value? What do you mean by that, Smooth?
Daily. I think he's saying a daily quest giver in player cities.
Daily. Okay, yeah. That's something we can definitely look into. I mean, we haven't, I don't think, specifically talked about that, but
No, I mean, it's not a bad idea. We can also, well, I think one of the things we talked about that would be really cool is allowing clans to create quests and like billboards and stuff. And I think that would be probably really
Yeah,
cool.
we've definitely discussed that. It's just a matter of doing it, really.
Yep.
Zawichi asked, any plans to change the magic grind, or will it always be just a heal sync buying reagent and spamming spells over and over again? You can certainly go through and spam spells over and over again on monsters if you want, but we implemented our spell scroll crafting system, which allows you to, if you so choose, just craft scrolls and increase your magic proficiency that way. So you can either do it through active use on monsters, on a lot of the offensive spells, or you can utilize the mechanics of the spell scroll crafting system.
You can also buy them if anybody's selling.
Or buy them. And you also have meditation too, which we activated to be both online and offline. So you have a couple options on how you want to progress your magic proficiencies outside of just going out and spamming reagents on monsters. Any talks about auction houses? We are implementing our deployable player vendor system, which is going to be the focus of our development team after we finalize the remaining issues that arose at launch, get the server stable, and tackle some of the current game changes that we're focusing on that I mentioned in the update last night. But yes, we will certainly be implementing that system, which is going to help enhance trade. But I don't think there's any plans on our end to be implementing any sort of auction system itself, typical to what you may be familiar with in other games. We may provide ways for you to be able to actually find items that are available around you with player vendors, but no plans right now for any sort of global or regional auction house itself. Ninja asked, can we have chess in the game? It's funny that you asked that question because tabletop games are something that we really want to get implemented. We don't have the ability right now to put focus on it at the moment because we have so many other things that we're working on. However, with that said, we are certainly going to circle back and try to see what we can implement into the world of Agon. To us, being able to go into a tavern or in your player city and play tabletop games with people is something that is not only very sandboxy, but it gives you guys things to do with either friend or foe, in sort of a downtime type situation. I mean, I personally have played other games. To give you an example, the Witcher series, or even some of the older Final Fantasy games that had quite amazing card games that you could play, and I've personally invested countless hours into those kind of games, and I think that if they were implemented in the world of Darkfall, that you guys would do the same thing. If you're able to play chess or play a unique card game or something along those lines, it gives you just something else to do when you're not looking to go out and PvP or go out and farm, etc. Will you expand spawn scaling to more or most mobs? Do you want to address that, Brad?
Spawn scaling?
Yeah.
Yeah, we will extend it to other mobs. We have to be careful, though. One, because of the load it puts on the servers, which we're already kind of seeing it a little in some of the concentrated areas with goblins, with AI crashing and stuff like that. We're thinking it has something to do with that, maybe. But also the economy. You can't just go crazy with spawn scaling, otherwise, it will just bloat the economy. But we're definitely going to add it to other monsters. I'm sure TG has something to say on this as well.
Yeah, I was just going to add that we discussed that last time too, and we will expand it. It's just like we said. It's just like he said. It's economy is the number one issue, and we just had the only reason that we haven't tried anything on it yet is we were making sure the servers were stable. And now that that's done, you can expect to see more changes coming through. Well, it's not done, but we're not crashing anymore, and the stability is much better than what it was.
Listen, 3 days without a crash, I'm celebrating personally.
I think we're all celebrating. Listen, having crashes occur and then seeing you guys frustrated because of not only the servers being down, but any possible rollbacks or inconveniences that happen, it's not fun for us. I can assure you that. We understand the frustration as gamers ourselves. So the fact that we're able to, over the past few days, have no crashes, knock on wood, we're very happy to see that. A couple things I see asked a few times. One of them is any plans for player tags for clan and alliance members, or the ability for allies to open city gates.
Allies opening city gates is kind of a no-brainer. We have the task up. It's one of those things that just hasn't been put in yet. We will. And then as far as alliance members and tags and stuff, no, I don't think it's ever been planned to go past. I could be wrong, but I don't think it's ever been planned to go past groups. And then, of course, the idea of tabards or flags or something like that, that's different. That's a possibility.
Yeah, I think that we want to, at least the general consensus is, instead of having party icons for like alliance members, as an example, we provide tools for you guys to be able to differentiate yourselves from others, whether that be clan tabards, banners, things along that nature, ways for you to be able to easily differentiate you and your allies compared to others, rather than just have it be an icon itself in the interface. Will we ever see mounted archery combat added into the game? Not mounted archery as in you yourself on a horse shooting arrows, at least to my knowledge, but Brad, I think that there's something that we may have been working on.
For what? Mounted archery?
Something along those lines,
yeah. There's something. It's been a something for a while, but it's still we kind of backburnered it, but it might come back soon.
But we think it's a great idea as long as it's balanced. It's not that the concept is bad. It's just that having the ability to fire arrows on a moving vessel obviously gives a lot of advantages. So you just have to make sure that its implementation doesn't cause any sort of issues to combat balance or player headaches, either one of the two. Is there any interest in a UI overhaul, like a gridded inventory or party bars? We're not happy with the interface itself as it stands overall. We've made a lot of enhancements to it, but I can tell you, TJ, the user interface is always on his radar on ways that we can make it better. I don't know if there's anything specific that you want to talk about that you've been working on, TJ, or plans that you might have in the future, because I know that we've talked about a lot of things that we're working to enhance and streamline.
I always have ideas, and for everything, not just the GUI, but every aspect of that thing needs some work in some fashion. The hotbars are going to get reworked, but one of the things that we did with the hotbar is we added to the current system. And it got to a point where I felt that it's just turning into a bloatware, when I would rather go back through and redesign how the hotbars are built entirely. It's an ugly mess, and it's unnecessary. Party, I think one thing that would be really cool is, and we almost had this implemented at one point, is to make it to where they sticky, and we might do that to all windows, have some sort of like magnetic, I can't remember what they call it, some sort of, the magnetic, where you can attach them to each other, and move the entire party window as one unit, change the way they look, change their sizes a little bit, make it a little better. I don't know. It's just all different kinds of things we can do with that. And then, of course, when it comes to the overall user interface, as far as the design and look, we want to make that at some point user adjustable. Probably start with basic, like just color, and then maybe go with some images, and then go from there. And it would probably be really simple. It's just not much to it. As far as the hotbars being fine, no, they're not fine, Battle Smurf. They're garbage. They need to be they need to have a more intuitive feel to it. You know, there's too many steps to get to like hotbar switching, which most good, you know, advanced players don't use, but a lot of players want. Like when you click a button and you know, and the hotbar switches to a different location. You know, things like that need to be far more intuitive. You know, yeah, get wrecked, Battlespot. But yeah, I mean, it's not intuitive at all, and it needs to be more intuitive. And like I said, you know, what we've done thus far is basically just piling stuff on top of the existing, but it needs to be reworked. The overall look and feel of it will probably be essentially the same, but you know, being able to make them horizontal, for instance, being able to display as many or as little as you want, and then having everything really intuitive and going through. So, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of rework to be done in the entire UI.
Memphis asks, will it be possible to look at a player's loot before you gank them? This will save a lot of newbie frustration. We agree. It's something that we've had in discussion for a while. We just haven't been able to get around to it, to be quite honest. I don't think anybody in the team objects to being able to look at a down player's grave. There's just some things that you have to consider when it comes to implementation so that it's not something that is, you know,
yeah. If you don't mind me interjecting.
Exploitable. Yeah, go ahead.
When I first started implementing, some questions came up like, you know, what happens when you go up and you kill a player and then you go to look inside his stuff and then you take his shit and then you walk away. He still dies, right? It doesn't do any good. So there was some discussion that needed to happen before we could fully implement it. Like, what happens when you run up and you loot the player who's not ganked and then you just leave? If he dies, you know, so one of the solutions is if he dies, you still get the hit as if you ganked him, or maybe he automatically reses if he gets looted, you know, different things like that. So those are the kind of things that came up and why we haven't implemented it yet.
Can you go more in depth with the new regional harvesting? Yeah, I mean, very simply put, Brad was able to come up with a system so that specific nodes in specific areas can drop specific items, and we have a lot of flexibility and control over, you know, either how widespread that regionalization is or how focused it is. I mean, we could technically, correct me if I'm wrong, Brad, we could have an item spawn from one bush in one location in the entire world and only spawn from that one bush. I'm not saying that we're going to go down that route, but we have a lot of flexibility, so...
Yeah, I mean, technically you could do that. It's more area-based, kind of defined areas, not, you know, whole areas. It can be whole areas, but it's just basically an area. And then, you know, you can have a specific loot table for that area. So really, the sky's the limit. We can do anything, and it's going to come into play with the house deeds. Because there are going to be certain resources that only come out of nodes in certain areas. And we can also use the mechanic to really create a hotspot, you know, make like, you know, an ore mountain, you know, that has a higher chance of rare ore, slap it somewhere and everyone knows about it, and, you know, you got fights.
Yeah, it gives us a lot of flexibility, not only when it comes to, I mean, we already alluded to the fact that this is going to be used in the new deed creation system that we're going to be implementing, but it gives us the flexibility to you know, consistently add in resources that are regionalized and found in certain locations. And we'll obviously continually expand on that in other areas of the game too. And the same thing can be said on the dynamic spawning resources, as we talked about. I mean, we can have it so that 5 items or a quantity of 5 of a particular item only spawns in the world at one time. And we can have it localized to a particular area or just have it be a global spawn so that when the game world is active and the server's live, there's only 5 of this particular item that's actually spawned dynamically out in the world. And, you know, it gives the ability for anybody to get those kind of rare items, but, you know, only a certain subset of people are going to have access to it that find it if those particular resources get replenished. So it gives us a lot of flexibility, again, on things that we can do. All right, let's see here. I've seen this asked a lot too. Changes to headstones when it comes to whether or not a mob spawn or a mob grave has been skinned or looted. That is definitely on our radar. I know that TJ's been looking into that. I don't know if you guys have any update on the status of that or if there's been any progress made.
No progress on it, and it's just there. Other things took precedence. That's all. The goal is to change the color if it's been skinned, and change the mesh entirely if it's been looted, and that way that if it's broken and still has a glow, it hasn't been skinned, but it's empty, that sort of thing. And then, but we'll get there.
Really angry person asks, will there be any mage specialist similar to destroyer or mage killer? I think the best thing I can say about this is that we're not a fan of the hard lock specializations. We made a design discussion thread on this a while ago, and by hard lock I mean anything that when you choose it, it locks you out of specific aspects of combat. Now, we do want to expand on the amount of specializations that are in game, but focus more on specializations that allow you to specialize in a particular aspect of combat, but still provide everybody the same access to skills and everything. The reason why that's important is it gives us more ability to properly balance changes that we have. When you have things that are potential hard locks in game, it causes a lot of frustrations with balance. And we've seen that already when trying to make changes to the crafting system with some of the professions, and some concerns that have immediately arisen when it's referenced against destroyer or indestructible. So this is not something that we take lightly when it comes to a aspect of the game to focus on. I mean, we know that combat is what, for many of you, is the reason why you love Darkfall, and it's the reason why so many of us on the team wanted to develop Darkfall Rise of Agon, to bring that kind of combat back. But that doesn't mean that there's not room for growth and making the combat system better and provide more options for diversity for people. So it's all about properly balancing everything and making sure that, when we do go down that route, that we approach it very carefully. And that's why everybody's feedback is going to be critical when we start talking about those kinds of systems. We got a lot of immense feedback from that initial design thread that we put up, but once we start to focus on that area of the game in a more focused content patch, we will definitely open up the discussion for you guys. Any plans for new race skills? Yes. Umberto had a thread on the game design section prior to launch talking about expanding on racial skills. We like having diversity between races, not only in the aesthetics, which at some point we will also expand on to give more diversity in character look, as an example, but also in the benefits that they provide to players. Again, it goes back to balance. This is a very competitive game when it comes to PvP, and any sort of changes that we make to races or things along that nature, we always have to keep in the back of our mind, ensuring that balance stays intact. So yes, we do want to expand on racial skills, especially things like crafting, professional skills, and other aspects of the game that aren't necessarily directly tied to combat. But that won't be until future patches. Probably will be something that we might look to focus on in the next month or two, but not any time before that.
We have an EU server. It's located in New York.
Yeah, that's the proper answer. We have an EU server. It's based out of New York, New York. Death to You asks, is there going to be another use for essences outside of spell scroll creation?
Sure.
Yes. As Brad said, yes. We don't know what it's going to be
Best
yet,
answer ever.
but yes, we certainly will.
Yeah, we can definitely do, a lot of things with them, There's going to be a lot of that type of thing where, we're going to have to come up with other ways for items to be used, which is no problem. That's the fun of game design.
Let's see here. Any plans to expand the portal system, more portal hubs, blue only portals, etc.? I'll let you take that one, Brad.
Yes, on both counts. I'm not even. I didn't finish the portal system, so yeah, it's still going to be tweaked and everything. Bear Grylls actually made, or I think it was Bear Grylls. It might have been. I don't know, but made a good post and definitely pointed out some things that could be improved upon. So that's going to be an ongoing thing. I mean, there's so much potential for that, and there's going to be portals added probably every patch. A few anyway. Every patch tweaks this and that. Um, that's the beauty of patching. You can actually change things often.
So Forever Orc asks, are there any plans of throwing the currently failed alignment system in the trash bin and bringing back racial wars? We actually are very happy with a lot of the feedback that we've gotten on the alignment system and some of the interactions that we've been seeing, because there is a lot of players interacting with other blues that they're not familiar with on a more friendly basis, which was one of the initial goals that we wanted to see with the system. That said, there are deficiencies that have been brought to our attention, some that we were obviously aware of before, and we're going to expand upon, but with a much larger player base than we had in beta and on a freshly launched server, there are some areas that we plan to expand upon. There's some pain points for griefing that we're going to be addressing. TJ's been working on some when it comes to player flagging mechanics that I think he talked about a little bit earlier. And we also want to expand on incentives and reasons for veteran players to want to stay blue instead of strictly going red, let's say, after they continue and get to a point where they feel they're good on character progression. Outside of that, there's definitely other things that we will plan to work on. We talked about a faction system previously. This is, something that we certainly have been looking into and we'll be opening up discussions on in the future when it comes to how we can expand on that system. But to be quite honest, when it comes to what we've encountered in game and the feedback we've gotten from a lot of people, both new and veteran, we're happy with what's been happening with the alignment system. But again, there are areas that certainly need to be enhanced. One of them that we've seen brought up frequently is the alignment colors. We do appreciate all the honesty in that feedback, and it's something that we're currently evaluating right now to make it so that it's more intuitive, on what the potential intentions of a player is based off of their color. And I think, as you guys have alluded to as well, there's a lot of deficiencies in the actual guidance players get on how the alignment system works. I actually put together the initial tutorial page on the alignment, but obviously it is very lacking in the information that's provided, and I think that our initial tutorial system that TJ put together can also help expand on how the alignment system works. So we're not done yet with new player guidance in that. We do realize that it's confusing for new players that aren't familiar with it, and it's something that's on our immediate radar to get addressed and to enhance upon, but we will not be going back to the racial war system. That is definitely dead set in stone.
Yeah, to touch on that, I guess the initial race wars that we once knew, no, we're not going to bring those back. It's not even a thing. I hear a lot of, or not a lot. I hear a select number of people who say that it was a bad decision to get rid of, and it's harder on new players. When the reality is, the people who are going to be picking on new players with a racial war get a free pass to do so they can just run and kill their opposing race new players and grief them and kill it without any repercussion whatsoever. So when you don't have the racial war, anytime somebody wants to pick on the new players, there is a repercussion no matter what. And that's the biggest impact that it has on new players. It's a very positive one. It's just a fun fact. I looked up the number of negative aligned players, and it's less than 4% of the player base is negatively aligned right now.
Wow.
Once we get through with the
surprised.
flagging, yeah, me too. Once we get through with the flagging system, we'll be able to hopefully eradicate the current griefing that's happening in game, things like in the cities and whatnot. The part of the solution to some of that ties into how we create faction warfare later if we do so. And that would be like the physics that you get, the mount kicks from newbie protected players and stuff, or even hit protection, I guess, is a completely different system than the hits and the damage aspect of it. And so forever we've been able to do knockback, the 24-hour protected players, and they could go flying. So that's part of the revamp, is to go back in and get rid of the physics aspects of all those. And then once that physics aspect is gone, then if we introduce the opt-in faction warfare later, and we have, say, NPC city wars like as an option. I know Jonah made a post on it about the old UO system, where if you fight over control over NPC cities. So if you're in faction warfare, when you're in these NPC cities, once we get that squared away, all that stuff squared away, then we don't have to worry about blue blockers coming in who aren't a part of the faction warfare and interfering with the fight. And so there's a lot of key aspects like that need to be finalized before we can really dig into it. It'll hopefully be fixed with the flagging and all that shit.
Angelo Sanguinum asks about what are you guys doing to address any sort of potential hacks or issues along that nature? Hacks and dupes, he said. So I talked about the whole concern of duping in the beginning of the stream. We have, with our persistent system, the ability to track the activities in game and can not only look for and find malicious potential behavior, but have the data that we need to make, permanent and concrete decisions on if people are offending or not. And anybody that is caught doing any sort of malicious activity that we can confirm, which we were able to do about a couple days ago when we encountered some malicious activity with a couple of character accounts, we will take very firm and strict action, and that includes a permanent ban, so that not only can that character, but any character associated with that account can't get back on, or future characters made. So we take that extremely seriously, and the same thing goes with hacking. With our new easy anti-cheat system that we implemented, we've been working with the provider of easy anti-cheat to continuously enhance the system, and we've received reports from people and some support tickets on things to keep an eye out for that we've been consistently adding to that list. So we take the integrity of the game extremely seriously, not only when it comes to from an economic standpoint, but just from a game standpoint. Again, this is an extremely competitive game, and it's important for us that everybody's on the same level playing field. And we will, this will be an area that we will consistently focus on. Let's see here. What else? Any plans to change trade chat to every race? I think this is something as well that goes back to alignment. We've been evaluating the current chat system itself. I know that TJ is going to be making some changes to the interface of the chat, but outside of that, with the mechanics, I think the general consensus is that yes, we are going to look at rearranging some of the chat channels to more appropriately coincide with the alignment changes. I'm not sure of an ETA or when that's going to happen, but it's definitely something that's currently on the radar being worked on.
Yeah, I think we need to sit down and discuss what those rules will be, and that's pretty much the extent of it. I just haven't. As far as to the best of my knowledge, we haven't nailed down how it's going to happen.
We have not.
The change is easy.
Gimmicker asks, there's an in-game store with nothing in it. Can you give some thoughts of items that are going to be added? Our first item, as I talked about before, is our game time token. This will be purchasable through 100 Nithron coins in the online shop. And when you buy this item, it'll get transferred to your deliverables tab, which will go into your bank. This item, you can either use yourself to get an additional 30 days active game time added to your account, or you can trade it to other players for in-game gold or resources, and then they can use it to add game time to their account. This item will let not only currently active players continue to keep their account active through the use of these in-game tokens, but also will allow people to to trade for these items if they want to keep their account active without having to pay any further subscription costs or anything. Outside of that, we're going to be looking to add in consumables that players can have access to in the Nithron coin shop. items that are just more for cosmetic purposes or just to have for fun. Again, nothing that's going to be considered a pay-to-win item, because that's not any sort of item that we plan to implement. And then outside of that, things like cosmetics, new emotes that you guys will have access to, potential new gank animations that you'll be able to buy through the Nithron coin shop. Basically ways for you to enhance your gaming experience without providing in-game advantages for PvP or economic purposes. So I hope that answers your question. Lycum, I see that you've asked this a couple times. Sorry, I don't mean to keep ignoring you. Your question is there any chance for the old nodes to be brought back so that players who can only play semi-AFK are able to? We have no intention of providing a lot of convenient ways for players who are AFK or semi-AFK to get a lot of resources and increase their economic wealth. The reason why is because it incentivizes people to use alt accounts to basically feed their main account with resources, and it's not intuitive to the kind of game that we're trying to create. We realize that people like to have activities that are semi-AFK, and we certainly want to add activities that can be that way, but having activities that are semi-AFK that can help increase a player's wealth is not necessarily what we want to encourage. That being said, you can still AFK nodes as it stands right now. It just requires you to move around a lot more. So it's not as rewarding as it used to be.
We've actually kicked around the thought of maybe making nodes never run out of resources, and just the more it's tapped, the longer it takes, or like the fail rate increases type of thing. Something we've been kicking around, which possibly could be a potential, but
yeah, we'll probably start with the fishing nodes on that one, because that one was really obnoxious to watch, the new player streams.
it really was. It is. I mean, it's weird that you just.
What with fishing?
Yeah.
Fishing is probably the worst.
Fishing's based on the entire node, so it's horrible. And I think that if we make it to where it's basically it never runs out, but it's incredibly slow, and then you get more efficient as it goes, longer it goes without being farmed. Just makes more sense.
Yeah. Now on that, I don't want to get into design discussion, but would you say it would take longer, to harvest, the more times the node's been hit in a certain period of time, or would just the fail rate go up?
Fail rate probably. Yeah. Take longer to actually get anything out of it as well.
Right.
Why can't we fish off boats with a fishing rod?
You can.
I think what he's talking about is just the range. Whenever maybe we can increase the range when you have a fishing pole out or something.
Yeah, I can definitely increase the range.
And actually, fishing is a mechanic similar. We've tossed around the idea of trying to look into sort of mini games for harvesting, but it's a very fine line between fun and inconvenient. And it's also, you got to keep in mind that it's got to be a system, if we do it that way, that can't be automated through external means. So, I look at games, I think I mentioned this in the last stream that we had, but, I've been playing games for quite some time, and there's a lot of good RPGs that have great mini games for harvesting activities. And it's definitely something that we've been looking into to make it so that when you're out fishing or harvesting, it can be a more enjoyable experience than just, swinging on a node. But we haven't gotten there yet in terms of really putting focus on that. That kind of goes back to the topic of other mini games, such as tabletop games and taverns and NPC cities. I mean, we want to greatly expand on those areas. It's just a matter of, getting to that. With everything in this project, with Darkfall Rise of Agon, it's all about a matter of allocating resources on things that take precedence and priority. I mean, obviously, the past 2 weeks, that precedence and priority has been, working on server stability and addressing issues like tasks that people had that were getting bugged out, or some of the other bugs that arose with our, the first patch that we had after launch. So now that we've really gotten through a lot of the main issues that we encountered, we can start to focus more on those other areas of the game. So we did that development update last night. We're going to be doing things like these development updates rather frequently. Now that we're in the post-launch development schedule, even though currently we've been doing hot fixes on, a daily basis here and there, we're going to really be able to, in the next couple of weeks, shift our focus back towards focusing, which our original goal was to be able to focus on certain content mechanics and things along that nature every month, so that every month we have a patch that comes out that's adding in new content, and maybe every couple of weeks come out with patches that might tweak things or do hot fixes, things along that nature. So we want to get in a consistent patching schedule so that you guys know that every month you're getting new content to be able to try out and new things to work on. We just have to get to that point. And to be honest, we've been so inundated with the demand that we had at launch and that we continue to get, that that has taken precedence over any of the things I did not mention in our update last night. I mean, as it stands right now, the things that you can expect in the very near future are new tasks. We want to be able to implement a good amount for you guys to keep you busy while we continue to expand on that system. New unique mobs that will be out in the game world, and eventually we're going to implement the lore backstory functionality so that you can unlock the actual lore backstories that we have written. Our lore master, Jake, actually has, I think at this point, about 95 unique mobs made, each one with its own unique backstory tied to the lore of the game. So you'll eventually be able to unlock those as well once we implement those mechanics. And then, as TJ mentioned, there's some alignment changes that we have in the works in the immediate future. We have the house steed crafting system, which we're hoping to get in the next couple of days. And some other things that we've been focusing on. And that's what you guys can expect in the next, probably 1 to 2 weeks in terms of content added into the game. And then once we get through all those tasks, we'll be focusing in regards to the bigger content patch in the near future as the player vendors and some other things that we'll be working on too. And all these things, like I said, I mean, it's now that we're past the pre-launch development, we have a development schedule that we want to follow. And any of you guys that played Asheron's Call, it's going to be very similar to that, meaning that we're going to be doing consistent patches on a monthly basis. At least that's the goal, on a monthly basis, that you guys, every month we'll be talking about what we're working on. We'll be getting you guys involved in the design discussions so that we can get your feedback. I think that there's still plans for us to be implementing a test server, a public test server in the coming weeks, where a lot of these changes we can push to the test server for you guys to try out and give, actual feedback on the mechanics so that we can make changes before they go live. It's imperative to us that we get you guys and keep you guys engaged in our development process because, we all came from the old Darkfall community outside of a handful of people that joined the team that never have heard of or played Darkfall prior. And we realize the importance of not only keeping the communication channels open with you guys, but also keeping you involved in the process as well. I mean, obviously, there's some things that we'll have to keep hush-hush, things that we might want to have as surprises for you guys, or things that, due to the nature of them, we can't give specifics, because we don't want to give any sort of advantage prior to them going live. But in general, the mentality that we have internally, and the entire team feels this way, is open communication with you guys and, getting you involved in the design of a lot of these systems. I kind of went on a rant there, but I hope that gave a little bit of insight of what we're looking to do here from a development standpoint. Are there any statistics that surprise us? I think there's a total of 8 Justice Bringers in the game right now. Total? Actually, let me check. Let me see here. Correct. I'll let you know right away.
Peace treaty offered.
Is that the correct number, Brad?
Was this morning.
All right, so as of this morning, there was a total of 9 Justice Bringers, which is, is surprising. I actually thought there may be more, but it's nice to see that it's at that number. It's kind of the trend that we were hoping to see. There's also only, what is it, TJ, 73 female dwarves? Is that the total
Something
number?
Something like that, yeah. 70, 73, 79.
There's around, let's say 75 female dwarves in game.
I believe there was only 160 full plate helmets, I think I checked on this morning. which I found surprising.
There are over 1,000 male humans and over 1,000 male Mahirim. Those are the two largest groups.
It's a little surprising.
And they're very close.
Mike McHale asked, graphical updates coming? Graphical updates are, it's one of those topics that we get asked a lot about as a development studio. We realize that the graphics are somewhat dated, obviously because the game came out in 2009 originally, which is what this engine is being run off of. So the graphical engine itself is still dated to that point. We certainly want to enhance on the aesthetics of the game and the graphics, but to be honest, it's not an immediate priority because it does take an immense amount of resources from a graphical and artist standpoint, and we'd rather focus those resources on other areas such as adding in new content, adding in new items, providing things like clan tabards. Those all require resources from the art team, and the second that we try to divert them to a graphical overhaul, until we expand our resources in that regards, we don't deem it of high importance right now, to be quite honest.
Offered.
Someone mentioned race changes, and I just actually brought it up to Brad a couple of days ago that in order to get race changes into the game the way they will be is going to take some work. We have to recreate the how we have to basically build a system in game to allow players to do that and start over into the character editor and all that stuff, which isn't a really big deal, but it's time, right? So one of the things I suggested was allowing race changes ahead of that, and then just scripting it to happen during downtime. So basically, someone would go to the website, purchase a race change, and when they activate it, whenever the server restarts for maintenance, it would automatically change to whatever race they chose. But that it's up in the air. I don't know if it's something that the people would really want, or if they would want to be able to choose after. So it just kind of depends. It's a possibility that we could do that way in the interim until we get the mechanics implemented.
Dream Feature asks, where does the marketing campaign stand? If you're referencing the launch marketing campaign, it's basically been coming to a close here. It was scheduled to go off starting at launch. Well, a couple weeks before launch in some campaigns, and then we had a couple campaigns go live at launch. I would say, as the director of marketing, that it's from the data that we have and the metrics that we received, the marketing campaign was a huge success. And I can't give specific numbers, but I can say this: we hit our marketing goal when it came to the potential revenue from a marketing standpoint that we were hoping to hit within 24 hours of launch, and that marketing goal was much higher than any prior month that we had. So to give you an idea, launch went live and we hit our marketing goal in like 24 hours, and we did not expect that at all. So it was very humbling to see the amount of people that were coming to the website, the amount of people that were purchasing the game, the amount of people that were creating characters. And it's our job now as a development studio to keep as many of those people active as we can and help continually, grow the community as well. And we feel if we consistently develop and keep you guys engaged and make sure that, we're constantly communicating with you guys and being open and honest, that we can achieve that. And not only help maintain the players that we have, but consistently grow and expand the game as well. Because keep in mind, guys, we've said this in the past, both through updates on the website and even in our prior stream, but I know that Brad and TJ can attest to this and the rest of the development team. Pre-launch development wasn't necessarily, the fun things that we wanted to focus on. We had to address a lot of bugs, a lot of prior exploits that were in game that we had to tackle. We had to make changes like to the skill progression system. There was some content that we added that was fun to work on. I know that the scroll crafting system was something that we were excited about, and some of the other mechanics. But in general, pre-launch development was dealing with the issues that we had to in order to get the game ready from a launch perspective. And now that we're past launch, and hopefully past the, addressing the issues that arose at launch, we can really shift our development focus solely on new content, new systems, and really the fun stuff that we've wanted on our side as prior Darkfall players in game forever. I mean, that's really the beauty of this project, is that our developers used to play the game, and there's many things that all of us on the team have wanted to get implemented into Darkfall that never did. And we now have the opportunity to really focus on those areas and those kind of mechanics and type of content and actually get it added in the game. So that's really what we're most excited about. And, I think that now that we're past that initial stage of development, we can really start focusing on the fun stuff, as we've been calling it internally. We really haven't had time to focus on a lot of the fun stuff up until this point because there's been so many other tasks and projects to focus on. I don't know if either of you guys want to expand on that too, but I mean, I know that's kind of the general consensus that the team has had.
No, I mean, it's pretty accurate overall. I mean, we got some stuff in, obviously, but, that we did have to spend a lot of time on, non-content or just expanding on the game type of stuff.
Lycum asks, you mentioned that you wanted to stop people from utilizing alts. Why would the company want this if alts equals subscription time? That's a very good question, and I think that the best answer is that we would rather have less people in game playing actively than have a bunch of people in game that aren't really playing the game at all anyway. We're here to create a sandbox experience in the modern MMO day and age. And we're very lucky and humbled to be able to do that utilizing the Darkfall engine, and a game that all of us immensely love and are passionate about. So this may seem counterintuitive to people, but yes, having more alt accounts will drive us more revenue, but at what cost to the enjoyment of the game and to the type of mechanics and systems that we can add to the game. We don't need an immense amount of subscribers to keep the lights on and keep this game continuing in development, and we have already far surpassed that number up to this point since launch. And if we're able to retain even just a fourth of the people that we have right now playing, we have enough money to continue development and expand our team and get some of our key members into a paid position, which as it stands, everyone's still working volunteer at this point. So that's not of a concern to us. We realize the consequences of a reduction in alts, but in our mind, it's for the embetterment of the game. So we would rather lose out on some potential revenue in the hopes that we make an enjoyable experience for as many people as possible to help compensate that. I don't know if that answers your question, but I hope it did.
I mean, people are going to have alts anyway. There are people out there who have 7 alts or more, and they've figured out ways to utilize it to their benefit. But I think making it as easy as we have in the past makes it more difficult for the people who can't. It's less of an advantage than it used to be, and that's really the goal. As long as a solo player that can't afford or control multiple alts isn't going to be as hugely disadvantaged as it used to be.
Black Caucus asked a very good question, which is, what are the steps being taken to ensure that there's always an influx of new sheep into the game? There's a couple facets to that question, right? The first is new player guidance. When a new player enters the game, their initial experience has to be enjoyable. Otherwise, the chances of them being retained as a concurrent subscriber decreases, right? We definitely made some enhancements to that before launch with our intro tutorial and some of the other changes to the new player experience in general, but there's obviously a lot of room for improvements too. We see the threads in the forums about the confusion on the alignment system. We see the threads in the forums about players not necessarily knowing about meditation or the spell scroll crafting system. And some of the tasks that we'll be adding will be aimed to help educate people on those things, but there's also other areas such as making the user interface more intuitive. We made changes to help with that, but there's obviously a lot of more room to expand on that too. So we're not going to ever be satisfied until we feel a new player can get in the game, get acclimated to the intricacies of the game world, and feel comfortable from the moment that they log in. And even though we've had made progress in that regards, there's still a lot of room for us to further enhance that. And we are currently working on enhancing it, and will continue to do so. Now, outside of that, there's also the aspect of marketing. So, I have a team of 7 guys that work for me when it comes to the marketing side, whether it's people who are experienced in digital marketing and SEO, people who are experienced with social media, people who are experienced doing other digital marketing campaigns, and other individuals that help from a art asset standpoint for marketing endeavors. And we will consistently be doing things, having outreach programs, having our community get involved to help spread the word, even looking into things like a mentor program, potentially, all those type of things to help get the game, the name out there and bring in new blood. And on top of that, we also have our goals of having a Steam release, which will greatly help with possible players as well. So the marketing team is not going to just stop because we launched. It's the same thing with development. Launch is just a milestone for us. It was a step that we had to get to, and a milestone that we had to accomplish before we can continue on further developing and enhancing the game. So marketing as well is going to consistently go on. And as a matter of fact, we currently are working on a few marketing campaigns as we speak that I can't necessarily go into specifics on right now, but it's all, driven to increase exposure. So it's definitely a priority. We understand the necessity of consistent influx of new blood and of people that, as you state, are called sheep, and we will always look to bring in new blood and fresh players to the game throughout the lifespan of it.
One of the things that we talked about implementing for the GUI and helping new players is making it easy for members of the community to add to like an in-game wiki. That would help. And then, of course, we would approve any posts that are made. But that's one option we could do. And then also the help windows that are in there, we could make it to where people could create their own little help stuff, and we could add to and it would be really simple. But that gets the community involved. I had another thought that I was going to throw out there, and I lost it. Apologize.
Liquid Deck. Sorry if I mispronounced that. Ask new players don't understand the hotbar mechanics at all. How can you fix that? Tutorials, videos. I think that goes back to what TJ was talking about previously. He wants to, the team wants to basically redo the hotbars when it comes to how they function. I mean, basically take the new mechanics that we added to it and make them more intuitive. That's really the best way to say that. Players shouldn't have to read a guide to learn how to utilize their hotbar. And I've actually been on streams with some, big name streamers over the past couple weeks, and I've had to explain to them the mechanics behind the hotbar, and it's quite obvious there's a lot of room for improvement there. So we're definitely not happy with, the guidance that people get on the hotbar mechanics, and we will certainly enhance them to help alleviate those pain points for new players. You say redo the hotbar is going to take a lot of time, though. In the meantime, what can we do? Obviously, expanding on the in-game tutorial is something that we are going to be doing, both in the tutorial that you start the game with, as well as the actual quick start guide that the in-game help menu links to. But in regards to focusing on UI mechanics themselves, I mean, once we get through our initial set of goals that we have right now, I'm sure that there'll be focus that's going to be put back on those too.
Yeah, I actually, Brad probably doesn't even know this, but I logged into Rise one time and asked him if he needed help.
No, I did not.
Yeah, and you're like, not really. Maybe you can make some character models or something. I don't know, but I was like,
no recollection of that.
But I remember the keybind system for that vaguely. You had the keyboard on screen, and you could assign stuff to the keys. And I actually copied that to a degree. I have a keyboard in game right now, and I was working towards something like that, to where you would see the keyboard on screen, and then you could assign spells to the keys or whatever, and maybe use the drop down system where you can add multiples to it or something. I don't know. It's just coming up with the best solution is hard because there's so many different people and everybody learns things a little bit differently. So we'll work with it and continue to improve all that stuff. As far as making it easier for players, just like Michael says, all we can do is add tutorials. Maybe we can have pop-up windows here and there, like, after the basic tutorial is finished, and you go to cast a spell, a pop-up window shows up on there and says, "Hey, did you know you can add another spell to this button?" or something, things like that.
All right, let's see a couple other ones here. Any plans on making a newbie island or tutorial item? It was talked about during pre-launch development, but that kind of endeavor takes a lot of development resources to implement. And if we get the initial starting experience to a point where it's very intuitive for new players and they have the guidance that they need, there's not really necessarily a need for a newbie island or something along those lines. So for the time being, we don't have any plans to focus on that, and instead focus on what new players experience right away off the bat when they log into the game. Gamer Cure Rizu asks, can you do a stream one day where you build something live that will actually go into the game? Right now, Brad is going through the world builder to make some changes to a couple cities. Those will actually, the changes that you see now will be going live whenever they hit the test server and get patched through. But one of the things that we want to leverage this Twitch channel to is exactly what you're saying, having more developer live streams where we can, be working on a specific feature and maybe having a game design discussion on, or things along those nature. We really like this format, and we've gotten a lot of positive feedback from our first Twitch stream that we did. I know for a fact, I've seen you guys make some comments, but I know that I have to upgrade my webcam. I actually have one on order, but it did not arrive in time for today. So we'll certainly make sure that the audio and video quality is as pristine as possible for these future ones. But we're going to be doing these probably on I wouldn't necessarily say a bi-weekly, but anywhere from a bi-weekly to a monthly basis. And we may have community events that we're going to be streaming here. We want to host official tournaments in game, and we'll be using our Big Picture Games Twitch channel for those kind of tournaments and future community events that we're going to be tying into the lore of the game. I know that's one aspect that many of you guys really love, and we're in the process of working to get all the lore up on the website that has been written, doing things like adding the lore backstories to the unique mobs, and then eventually tying in things into the game world itself based on lore that you'll be able to interact with. Something else that we want to start doing, that we'll be making an announcement on soon, is having a news channel where it will be an official Big Picture Games news channel for Darkfall Rise of Agon, and we'll be having reporters in game that will be giving us feedback on the politics occurring and major events that happen, and we'll be having these broadcasts narrated and presented. I don't know what the schedule is, but probably on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, or I should say weekly or every other week basis, but something that is, we're excited about, that you guys can look forward to. So yeah, we definitely want to continue to leverage this type of platform that we have here, because as it stands right now, we have close to 300 people watching the stream, and you guys are from our community, so this is a great way for us to be able to interact with you on a live basis rather than just through forum messages or on Discord. So let's see here. What other questions do you guys have? I'm sure I missed some, so go ahead and start posting them again. You guys had plans for an in-game political map? That's definitely something that we're looking into when it comes to enhancing the in-game map itself. But it all is a matter of what information we want to be privy and what information that we don't. I mean, as an example, there was a siege that happened last night at 3 a.m., and a lot of people in the game didn't even know that it was occurring, which to us is actually a good thing because it allows clans and alliances to have sieges without having the whole thing broadcasted to the world. So if we do have a political map, we think that kind of data is very helpful and valuable to provide. It's just a matter of what information we want to be shown and what information we want to stay hidden. Will you guys go ahead?
Sorry.
No, go
So
ahead.
it's been mentioned a couple times about mounts and being able to pick things up. And my first thought on that is a new mount that allows that. That way it's a specialization of sorts. But it's worthy of discussion at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, the original thought with that was, make it too easy, everyone's going to do it, and then there's not a market for it, If you don't want to pick the shit off the ground, don't pick the shit off the ground. Buy it.
Yep.
Will you guys ever add a help me screen back? Yes, I think at some point we're going to. I don't know how we want to best add it back in, but I know we've talked about it. Because we do have the sound asset, so. Lupine Longclaw asks, have you been monitoring PvP around low-level spawns, and do you see an issue with the challenges new players are facing there? Yes, we've been monitoring new player spawns, and we know that there's new players that have been getting, hunted and killed by red players. We also know that there's players who are blue that have been taking advantage of some potential pain points of the alignment system. We've been also getting feedback on the forums, on Discord, and through private messages on this topic. So it's definitely something that is in immediate focus for us when it comes to making changes to enhance some of the deficiencies that the alignment system has. And I think it's also important to note that, we have to continue to expand on incentivizing players to want to remain blue. If there's a lot of players that want to remain blue that are veterans, it provides a little bit more of a safety net for those new players that might be starting out around NPC areas that are getting hunted by either reds or blue players that are trying to take advantage of deficiencies right now in the system.
Yeah, and I want to kind of point out that some people mention having safe zones for new players, and I think that it's my personal opinion on that is it making something completely safe just takes away from the soul of the game, and that's largely what my first complaint about Unholy Wars was. And you can't have a true safe zone unless you do what Unholy Wars did and make it to where it's 100% safe. So we either need to make complete safe zones and follow Unholy Wars, or continue to go through these little steps that we've been working on to eliminate the annoyances and the things that griefers can take advantage of, bugs and whatnot, which I think is the best route. It takes longer, and it's more annoying for the new players, obviously. But I mean, that's just how I see it. We need to. I like having the danger no matter where you go, at least to a degree.
RELOD asks, is there a strategy with decreasing rares from nodes and golems, etc.? And if so, what is the idea behind it? We really want mastery gear, both weapons, armor, and really anything that's on the mastery level, to be something that is sought after and something that it has a high value to it. And when there's a lot of influx of rare ores into the economy, that starts to dissipate because you start seeing those things much more frequently. Our goal is to have it so that high-end non-mastery gear and low-end mastery gear is what you see out and about in daily activities in PvP. We don't want higher tiers of mastery gear being as common as it used to be. And the reason for that is because we want to ensure that there is a proper balance of risk versus reward, as well as, a proper rarity of those items as well. So that is the reason why we are, constantly evaluating the output of rare ore and making adjustments to it. It's not to make your guys' lives more difficult. It's to instill a proper balance of risk versus reward depending on the amount of the level and the rarity of the item in question, and what materials are being utilized for that. Now, that being said, there's also some areas we need to work on when it comes to proper balance between certain armor ranks, whether it's armor smithing or tailoring, as an example. And as we mentioned in the past, we're going to be focusing on those two professions once we start dialing in on the combat system itself and things like specialization. So, we see your concerns and the feedback that we've gotten on decreasing the output of those rare ores, but it's being done for a reason, and that reason is to ensure that we can have as best of a balance of mastery weapons and armor as possible. We want them to be much more rare than they used to be, and part of these changes are aimed and designed to achieve that goal. Any plans on ever getting four-legged run in the game? I don't think so at this point. I mean, we joked about it when we first got the game to see if the mechanics were actually in the game code, but I don't think that that's something that we're going to put any focus on in the immediate future. We are, as I mentioned before, adding in more racial skills, but I don't think that that's on the docket to be one of them at this point in time. Any plans on reworking the whole journal menu? Feels very clunky. Yes, the journal in game, and I don't mean the task journal. I mean the journal that you can get data such as going to the clan or meditation is awful. I mean, let's just be open and honest about that. The in-game journal is a piece of shit, and we all agree that it is, and we all agree that it needs to be enhanced. And I know that TJ has plans to completely redo that whole journal system. I don't know if you want to talk about some of the ideas that you had, TJ, but I know that that's something that we've talked about in the past.
Yeah, I think just basically joining it with the task menu so that it becomes the new journal and different tabs for different things.
Do you guys like the new task journal that TJ implemented? Because I know that that's something that we can expand upon and potentially utilize that UI for other areas of the journal that the previous journal utilizes right now. Are you going to be doing anything about city mine rare ores? I think in one of the recent patches we made changes to that. Is that correct, Brad?
I mean, at launch we did. We haven't made any changes since launch, though. What is he referring to specifically?
Yeah, give a little bit more of a description, if you would, Smurf. GFOS says, tasks would be pretty awesome once dailies are in, but I hope some thought is put into randomizing them per person so task spots aren't ganked hotspots. This is obviously something that will be considered when we start adding those in. As I mentioned before, the next batch of tasks, and I don't know how many we're going to be able to get to. We're trying to get in as many as we can, but the next set of tasks is going to follow kind of the same structure as the current one. So it's going to expand on the kind of monsters that you can kill for rewards. It's going to expand on harvesting tasks and implement some crafting tasks that you guys can work towards. But those are really more just basic mechanic tasks, and it's the reason why we're going to focus on that first. After that, we can certainly expand on other tasks, such as killing unique mobs, as an example, following a task that has multiple stages that take you to various areas of the world, and the whole concept of randomizing tasks per person is something that we could obviously look into as well. We do want to have daily tasks, weekly tasks, monthly tasks, things along that nature. We're just not there yet. The task system is something that we're very excited about in general because it gives us a lot of flexibility to expand upon. I mean, right now we have some basic mechanics in that you guys have all run through with killing goblins and trolls and kobolds and, you know, harvesting X amount of resources. That's just the initial iteration. And these next batch of tasks are going to follow that same kind of those mechanics that are currently in the task system, but we have the flexibility to consistently expand upon them. So we'll be able to add in much more complex tasks with many different stages. I mean, we can theoretically put in a task that has 100 stages, and each stage sends you to a different part of the world. So we really have the flexibility to do what we want with this system, and it's something that we're going to consistently be adding to so that there's always new things for you guys to work towards. So Smurf says, currently city mine rare ores just flood the economy, and they're mostly gained from naked alts slowly hitting it inside their city all day.
Peace treaty offered.
Do either of you guys want to touch base on that?
I mean, it's you know, it's part of the advantage to owning a city. I mean, I'm not saying it's working the best if it's just nakeds hitting it. I don't know what we can do about that. You know, go in and kill the naked and mine it yourself. Like, you know, we decrease the amount coming out of it a lot. You know, we can nerf the ore coming out of it more, but really, the economy isn't flooding with rare ore. It's not. I think we'd know it if it was.
Dirt Blurp asks, will ghost casting be fixed in the new server hardware? As I mentioned earlier in the stream, one of our goals with the increase in server hardware that we will be acquiring on Tuesday is to alleviate those desync issues and the lag that you guys are encountering. As we mentioned before, it's due to the way that the game and the persistent system is currently saving data, and it was done to help alleviate potential concerns of possible rollbacks if the server was crashing. But once we take the persistent system and place it on a separate server cluster, which we'll be able to do when we get the new server hardware, our hope is that that will alleviate and address the issues that people are encountering.
I think some of the issues right now, it seems like the servers just got a little rough, like right now. So if that's the case, and maybe they just need to be restarted, and I'm not sure what the reasoning is behind it, but yeah, I mean, we'll fix it. There's once the servers are, you know, the FPSs are brought up back to where they were during beta, and we have the new server running persistence, you should see a big difference. If not, there's another thing we can do to change the ghost casting stuff. There's more work that I can do to that. I did a very minimal change originally to get rid of it. So if it absolutely needs it, we can adjust more.
Mike McHale asks, what about player created tasks for other players? This is actually a very cool concept. We haven't specifically discussed this yet, but I guess, TJ, is this something that you think would be possible given the current setup of the task system?
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
Being able to create tasks for other players. So you're in game and you create a task for somebody else to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's something we talked about with like clans and billboards and whatnot. We can, sure. I mean, it might be a slightly different mechanic, but it would be tied into the same inner workings.
Will there be a gift for the many server crashes? Thank you for asking that question, Reckham. I mentioned it in our update last night and in one of our last ones, but yes, we feel that the beginning days and the first week and a half of the launch, obviously the server stability was not acceptable to us, and we know that it caused a lot of frustration. So we will be adding game time to everybody's account that has an active sub to compensate for those inconveniences. We obviously can't compensate people for lost items that they may have encountered during the server crashes, but you know, at least what we can do is give you guys added game time to your accounts to alleviate the inconveniences that you guys encountered. So we certainly will be doing that. Is this stream being monitored for future use and training purposes? it's going to be recorded and I'm sure reviewed and watched by a lot of people. There's definitely things we can do to obviously enhance the streaming experience. As I said before, I'm going to be making sure to get a better webcam for the next one so that it's a little bit clearer for you guys from a video standpoint. But like I said before, we really like this format. We're going to be utilizing it a lot more in the future for things like player or officially sponsored tournaments and community events and other things like these live stream events.
What kind of cat food would you feed my cat if I went away for the weekend and you had to care for it? It does have relevance because my cat loves ROA. I would feed it the food you left me to feed it, because I'm not bringing food to feed your cat.
I don't have a cat, so I can't answer that question for you.
I'd let it outside. They can survive on their own.
How will dirt be used? Just save it for now, I think is the answer for that.
It's dirt, has many uses.
Yeah, dirt has many uses. Just keep it in your inventory. All right, guys, I'm going to, what time is it right now? It is about 3:15. We'll stay around for a few more minutes to ask any more questions that you guys have. So if there's anything that we didn't touch base on or that you had lingering, feel free to ask them now.
I think we should use dirt to bury stuff. Doesn't make sense because you have to dig a hole, but whatever.
Any plans on making parry and lean mount a skill that we can bind on the same bar as spells? Yes. We haven't gotten to it yet, but I know that that's been talked about a lot, and it's one of the things we want to do.
Yeah, it'll either be a skill that you put on there or separate mount abilities that can have the same keybind type thing.
Since the engine was custom built, do you guys have the coding talent to expand upon it greatly? Yes, we do.
Yeah. Let me just kind of get that one. There is nothing in this as far as code goes that we can't mess with, period. But literally the only thing that we have trouble with because of the engine is implementing animations into the game. We obviously can do the objects, and we can import textures and objects and things like that. But animations are literally the only thing that we haven't taken the time to get into the game yet. Other than that, nothing can't be changed.
We've started to, but we're having trouble finding a piece of software that is required, to be perfectly honest.
Old.
Very old.
Ancient.
Will deployable vendors be a thing? Not just house vendors? Yes. That's actually one of the things that we're going to focus on first after we tackle the last few things that we're currently working on. Deployable vendors will probably be the main content piece in our first big content patch. In terms of an ETA, I would probably say maybe around mid-June will be when we try to get that implemented, mid to late June. So player vendors will be the first major content piece that we focus on. They're going to be deployable. Players can place them out in the world and sell their wares, and other players can buy from them. So Peros, to answer your question, yes. Absolutely.
Nat asks, any plans for more banking layers and customization options? I just implemented the Recruit Bank. So what we have in game right now is Recruit Bank and Captain Plus, and so basically I added a middle tier for Private Plus. So on the next update, you're going to have Recruit, Private Plus for your standard clan bank, and then Captain Plus, and then anything beyond that, we're going to make it some form of in-game gold rental fees or something, or purchases in order to expand banks. And then we can obviously implement the ability for SGs to change the rules in those in the future.
Will you be putting things in the capital cities to make staying blue worth it? Auction houses as an example. We're not going to be putting in an auction house. As I mentioned, we're doing the deployable player vendors, and we'll probably be enhancing ways for you to be able to find where potentially certain resources are, but not in the sense of an auction house, as you guys are probably familiar with. That said, there are many other ways that we can incentivize people to want to stay blue, outside of just for character progression purposes. And we will certainly be, opening up discussion threads on that topic, as I know that it's currently being hotly discussed on the forums, and it's certainly something of priority to us. We want to make it so that there is always a healthy blue population in this game. We think it's imperative for that to be the case, not only from a new player experience, but just from diversity in player interaction as well. And part of that means that players have to feel that there is an incentive to stay blue and not just to go red, like a lot of other people may be doing. Right now, we have capital recall as one of the first incentives that we added, but obviously, and I don't have to say this to you guys because you guys know, but obviously that is just one thing and is not going to be the full extent of what we have as blue incentives. There's many other things that we can do to incentivize people that want to stay blue.
I think the only reason that we haven't done custom names for your clan ranks is for identification purposes on the other team, opposing clans and whatnot.
That actually brings up a good topic. The way that alliances are certainly set up, or currently set up, I should say, definitely needs a lot of enhancements. I know that TJ in the past has talked about redoing the entire way the alignment structure is set up, and that will certainly be one of the things that we work on as well.
Yeah, we'll make them an entity just like a clan and make it to where clans have to apply, et cetera, et cetera.
Any hope of getting self-closing city gates like in Unholy Wars? Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a no-brainer, which is something that we have to get to. Can we please have less clan vault stealing recruits? I think TJ alluded to that before, but we're going to be adding in another tier of the clan bank so that we can help alleviate those problems. Any plans for more tools for clan management? Absolutely. We know that there's deficiencies in that area right now, and it's something that we also want to expand on. It shouldn't be a huge pain in the ass to be a clan leader in Darkfall Rise of Agon. And right now, with the way the game is designed, there's a lot of pain points and headaches for people that are trying to manage a clan and coordinate, multiple people that can be in a clan. So that's definitely an area that we'll expand upon too. Will we see GM-controlled mobs attacking cities? This will go along the lines of GM events that we'll host. Absolutely, it's a possibility. Myself personally, I would like to see mechanics implemented where mobs themselves can attack player cities. I think that's a real possibility, and it's something that we've definitely talked about in depth on the team. It's just, again, it's a matter of when will that take priority and when do we focus development resources on it. But having the ability for monsters to attack cities would be awesome. They talked about it back during the Razor Wax days in the early 2000s when they first started developing Darkfall Online, but as we all know, it never came into fruition. So it's definitely something that we can try to work on to get in game, because it would be really cool to be in a city and just have mobs start randomly attacking you.
It's totally possible.
Will additional portal networks be added? Yes. The portal network's not done. I know that Brad will consistently be adding to it. There's also was a question on if all the portals have been found. The answer to that question is no, unless there's some people that are saving portal locations to themselves, because at least the ones that have been reported, there's definitely some more that are out there that have not been discovered yet. Is it possible to ever fix load lag? I think that we'll find out when we start expanding on the server hardware next week and make some of our server configurations. I mean, ideally, it would be best if there was absolutely no server lag whatsoever. Or not server lag, but no sort of player load lag. If you want to sneak up on somebody or a group of players, you should be able to do so without having the game, due to a hitch, alert everybody that you're on your way. So it's, there's still load lag in the game as it stands right now, but we definitely want to completely remove it if at all possible.
I know we talked about load lag a lot.
Oh, who's this?
So here in a bit. Hey, Brad. It's Andrew. Just been quietly hanging out here. But when it comes to load lag, yeah, we've talked about load lag a bit over the past year, 2 years now. We've been doing this, and there's a few solutions we talked about, but short term, there's nothing that we're probably going to be done. But long term, there was kind of a few ideas we had that we'll probably put that one to rest.
For those of you guys that don't know, Andrew joined a couple minutes ago and is our CEO for Big Picture Games.
I just thought I'd sneak in there for a bit, so I wasn't able to come earlier.
Big Picture Games, are you going to make sure there is a healthy population of reds and not go overboard with blue incentives? Considering right now less than 4% of players are red. Of course, this number will increase, but right now it's considerably skewed. I think there's a couple important things to note here. First of all, a lot of people are currently progressing their characters, and there's definitely benefits to staying blue when you're doing so. Our goal has to be to ensure that after character progression is completed, there's still a healthy blue population. And as it stands right now, there's still a lot of areas where we can expand upon that. I know that we talked about a bunch of them in the past and throughout this stream. But you got to keep in mind, a game that is healthy is going to have a strong blue player base. And just because you're blue doesn't mean that you're not going to engage in PvP. And just because that you're red doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to always want to be engaging in PvP as well. So there's a lot of different things that you have to consider when it comes to that. But, we're not concerned with any sort of lack of red players. As a matter of fact, I mean, if there was only a few percentage of the population that stayed red throughout the entire game, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because there'll still be PvP occurring in villages, there'll still be PvP occurring in all the lawless areas, there'll still be PvP occurring in dungeons, when there's sieges, city raiding, all those kind of things would still occur, even if there was only a small subset of red players. The goal here is to ensure that new players have a supportive blue player base that stays active in the game. And, that's something that we will consistently work towards. Let's see what else here. Why do I have to run this game as administrator? Is this always going to be the case? Discord, just so you know, for some reason there's been some issues with it recognizing Darkfall Rise of Agon. We've been working with the Discord team to get that addressed, but the reason why the game is run in an administrator mode is because of the way that the engine's designed, especially with new operating systems like Windows 10, it has to run in administrator mode in order to properly install. Maybe Brad or TJ can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but from my understanding, that's the way that it's set up that way.
Yeah, I think there's some, because of where you install it might make a big difference if it's on the system drive or not, because you don't, it has to make changes to some files in there. And if you put it on the system drive, then the computer wants you to have administrator rights in order to change the files within it.
Smurf asks, do you have someone working on improving siege mechanics? I touched base on this earlier. We're going to have an entire patch cycle focused on siege mechanics. We're currently discussing it internally and coming up with some ideas of the best way to tackle a siege system overhaul, which is what essentially it will be an overhaul. When we get to that point in time, though, we'll certainly be opening up threads to bring the conversation to you guys as well. What ideas do you have to expand the features in the ocean? This is something that I personally am really looking forward to, because the ocean and the waterways are very vast, but they're very vacant and empty. Yes, we have kraken spawns, and yes, we have some other mobs out in the ocean, but some things we can do is add in more mobs to go find, get certain resources that only spawn out in the ocean dynamically, which we now have the capability of doing. Having more control points that you can fight over that require ships similar to sea towers, but maybe on a smaller basis. There's got to be reasons for people to want to go out on the ocean. And even though we decrease the cost of ships and increase their speed, that itself is not necessarily reason enough to want to bring boats out on the water. So this will certainly be an area that we focus on as well throughout development too. Where is the line drawn with macros? Currently, auto hotkey macros are allowed. Does this include pixel detection macros? And if not, how do you plan to regulate it? Without going into too much specifics, we have a lot of control with the new easy anti-cheat system that we have and what we can monitor and what we can prevent other players from utilizing. We don't like people macroing in game. I mean, a lot of the changes that we did initially in the very beginning of development was addressed to stop a lot of the AFK macroing that people would do back in Darkfall Online for skill progression. But when it comes to macros for hotbar efficiency, the ultimate goal is to make it so that there's no hotbars needed. We've already alleviated the need for some of the previous macros that people used in the past, but there's still some that are out there that people are using for convenience sake, and that just simply means that there's deficiencies in the user interface that we have yet to tackle. Once we make it so that macros aren't needed at all in the user interface, then we'll probably be taking more of a hard stance on people utilizing third-party programs such as that. But things like pixel detection, as an example, are things that we can track with easy anti-cheat, and that will consistently be expanding on its capabilities to look out for. Was anything mentioned about how we feel about the strong boxes in dungeons? That's a good question, because it's been brought up a couple times in the forums. I see no issue with using strong boxes to block entrances. I think the problem occurs in the fact that you're notified when your strong box is getting attacked, and you're kind of restricted in how you can destroy the actual strong box. I don't know if any of you other guys want to expand on that, but I don't think the actual mechanic of using a strong box to block an entrance is a bad thing. I think that the way that people are currently notified that their strong box is getting attacked and what's required to destroy them is currently where there's some issues.
Go ahead, T.
Oh, I was just going to say that I haven't really put any thought into it, but if I was going to say it, the messages seem silly to me.
Yeah, that's what I'd say as well.
The messages, like alert messages when you hit them, you mean?
Yeah. I don't think people should be getting them.
The messages you can get from the other side of the world.
Yeah, we've already made a lot of changes to system messages, as you guys know, and removed a lot of the global system messages that there were back in Darkfall Online. And the reason for doing so is, you know, if you and your clan are out in the world or in a different city across the map, that doesn't mean that you should be notified that someone's breaking your, you know, system of your city or other activities. I mean, if you do so, you prevent people from being able to sneak up on you or infiltrating cities on, you know, by being very sneaky and you know, stealthy. But the same kind of thing applies when it comes to strong boxes. Why should you be notified that your strong box is getting attacked if you're nowhere near it? And you know, it allows people advance notice if they're in a dungeon, as an example, to either log out of the game so that they're not killed or to try to get to the exit to avoid confrontation. And that's not the kind of mechanics that we want to see in game.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with that. I mean, it's kind of an oversight. We probably should have removed that message as well, but that's not hard to do. I would also say even, I don't know why, I mean, clan boxes should probably be, at least the personal ones, I'm not sure if they should require battle spikes or a siege hammer.
Yeah, I mean, we can just put a reduced amount of damage on regular weapons so that it's still possible. Just quicker with siege or something.
Right.
Hale asks about the binding of Q and E as mount leans while on a mount and having it bound to something else. Yes, that's on our radar, and it's something that we're looking to do. We just haven't gotten to it yet. It's not, you know, as easy as going in and just making a quick XML change. So we'll get to it as part of our, you know, continue endeavor to enhance the user interface experience, but we just haven't gotten to it yet. What are your thoughts on Fun Hulks?
They were too fun. We had to pull them.
Yeah, I think there just was too much fun for Darkfall Rise of Agon.
The reason they were pulled is because of the griefing potential. You can just literally hook onto somebody and take them wherever you want. And
Yep.
when that gets fixed, we'll put them back or something.
We tried to fix it, but it was ugly and didn't really work well, so we just pulled them because really, the love lost them. Let's be honest.
But you may see something similar to a Fun Hulk at some point, but it will hopefully actually be fun. So
Yeah, they won't be fun Hulks if they come back in. I can tell you that. There's no point. I just don't get it.
Yeah, scrap it and move on. Exactly. We can use the mechanic and the engine or the drivers for it for something that's actually good.
Yeah.
all right, guys. So I'm going to do a last call on any lingering questions here. It's 3:30 right now, and we've been doing the stream for about 2.5 hours. So I'm hope that we addressed your guys' questions and alleviate any concerns that you might have had on certain topics. But again, anything else that you guys want before we head out of here, just go ahead and post your questions.
As far as wagons and carts and things like that, that's a pretty interesting kind of thing. As long as we have a purpose for it. One of the things that we've talked about lengthily is better trade routes, city to city type thing, shorter trade routes. Just basically just having tons of different types and maybe using wagons or something of the like to move items.
All right, there's a couple other good ones here. Why do you ban for AFK macros? It's against our terms of service, and it's one of the things that we want to ensure that we can, eliminate as much as possible. AFK macroing and activities was very rampant back in Darkfall Online, and we want to encourage people to want to play actively and discourage players for wanting to, try to be AFK for advantages in game. When is the game going to release on Steam? I would say, realistically, if we can get the kind of changes that we want done in the next 6 months, I'd say 6 months from now would be a good rough timeline of when we probably approach trying to get the game up on Steam. It's definitely something that would be huge from, in terms of potential player base boom, but it also is important for us to make sure that the game is Steam ready, which I think as it stands right now, we still have some work to do. Nat asks, which team member would you like to praise for their work? I think on my end, personally, I want to give a lot of praise to the developers and the quality assurance team. People like Chris and guys like Brad and TJ on the stream, as well as some of our web developers and people working on the servers like Neil and Tamiz. We also have some other people that have been doing a lot of work on the project too over the past couple years. I mean, we have some of our core members like Umberto and people like MetalCon, who is a workhorse and a work animal. There's a lot of people on the team that have put in a lot of work and effort to get the project to where it is so far.
TLDR, everyone.
Yeah, I mean, basically, everyone again is working on a volunteer basis and has made a lot of personal sacrifices, not only when it comes to their free time, but also just in their day-to-day lives. So I'm just proud of all the guys for what they've been able to do so far, and I know that the team is really excited about what is going to be on the horizon. We've gotten past, in our mind, a lot of the initial hurdles, which was acquiring a license, getting acclimated to the game code, making some of the key changes that we had to get ready for launch. But now it's really the point in time when we can start focusing on the fun stuff.
Back to the who to thank. I mean, I feel like the GMs also are kind of unsung heroes. They have to spend a lot of time, just manually sitting there and answering, handling people's problems and stuff. And you just don't, you don't hear about them because they just do their job. So that's a pretty big deal. As well as the QA team, which puts, a lot of work in. Pretty much we just on demand ask them, test this, test that, test this.
Constantly.
And they do it every time. So that's all you can really ask for.
I want to add to the GM thing for sure. When we started this Discord thing, my God, the number of PMs I get, and I'm sure everybody on the team does too. It's insane, and it's all questions that really should be handed to either the bug reports on the forums or an in-game GM thing. And I can't even imagine how swamped they get. There's no way in the world that I could deal with that and get anything done at the same time. So this is definitely much appreciated.
The at BPG staff thing on Discord
Needs to be removed.
It's
No, I'm
great.
kidding.
It's fantastic. Let me tell you.
Yeah, it's actually quite funny. I'll wake up in the morning and hop on Discord to like 200 private messages. It's like, when you consistently have 1,000 people on the Discord server at a time, it's, we get a lot of messages from you guys. So if we don't ever respond, it's not because we're ignoring you. We get rather inundated sometimes with people. We think it's important to have these communication channels for you guys to talk to us, and Discord's actually been very helpful since launch. But it's also, just keep in mind that if you don't get a response or you feel like you're getting ignored, it's not because we're actually ignoring you. It's because we're still trying to get work done in the game at the same time as keeping our communication channels open.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I have to minimize it and ignore it just to get some work done, and then I'll go back and see a bunch of stuff that's really old, and sometimes I don't answer the old stuff, sometimes I do. It just kind of depends.
I'll wake up in the morning and kind of roll over and grab my phone, and my wife will laugh at me because the number of alerts, I have like 5, 6, 7, 8, sometimes 10 pages of just alerts that I just scroll by just before I even open my phone.
And that's just Discord. I mean, as the community manager, I get 1 million PMs in the forums too, and I'm sure the other guys do as well. So, and emails. I mean, there's a lot of ways for you guys to contact us. So, it's great to hear all of your feedback, and we do appreciate all of the support tickets and things that you guys have submitted as well. How do you guys feel about post-launch population? Is player retention going well? This is actually a very good question. We are very happy with our post-launch population right now, and the amount of people that have purchased the game and the amount of people that have recurring subscriptions and everything else is, it's very humbling for us as a team. In terms of retention, we're seeing pretty stable numbers. There's been a couple games that have come out over the past couple of days, and we've seen a little bit of a dip in concurrent users, but that's to be expected. But for all intents and purposes, we are definitely quite happy with what we have right now. And our goal is to, like I said before, just ensure that we keep updating the game and keep our communication channels open so that we can, ensure that player retention stays high. So we're very happy with what we have in game right now. It's actually, to be quite honest, a little bit more than we expected. So it's just a matter now of making sure that we keep adding in good changes and keep doing things like this to keep you guys engaged so that we can keep that population up. Bed Soap asked about airships. We've talked about airships. Airships are one of those mechanics that would be really cool. It's just one of those things that it's all about implementation. It could also be easily exploitable if we don't do our due diligence. So I personally love the idea of airships. I think it'd be a really unique feature added to the game. But I think if we were to do something like that, it would also have to be something that you could easily shoot down from the sky to a degree. Meaning, like, if you're on the ground getting shot from above and you don't have siege weaponry, you should be able to have a way to take that airship down. But
I want hang gliders.
And TJ wants hang gliders. I know that he's brought that up too. I mean, those are the kind of things that are really cool, unique features and mechanics that we can work towards. We just haven't, gotten to that point yet.
We've mentioned graphics before, and there probably won't be much for updated graphics, but we will look into it in the future for sure.
Any graphics we add should look better than what's there.
For sure. Bags. The sacks on the ground are pretty good.
The sacks are amazing.
Are we planning to do any official tournaments? Yes, absolutely. We'll probably wait another week or two until we have one, but I'd imagine by the end of May, beginning of June, we're going to have our first official sponsored tournament by Big Picture Games. And that will be streamed here too. We'll have somebody or a couple people who will be commentators and everything, and we'll try to make it as fun as we possibly can.
Yeah, I would personally love to do that, and we can actually even give out prizes and stuff like that. So
Will we
train up.
will we be able to customize chat to make it easier to keep and understand what is going on? As an example, changing color in clan kills, revive as green, gank as red, etc. Yes, absolutely. The chat system is one of the other areas of the UI that I know that we want to enhance. Again, it's just a matter of getting to it. It's on a long list of things that we want to tackle. Let's see here. No chance, says any old UO Siege Perilous looking for a lonely orc. I don't get to play the game, unfortunately, much. I hop on to talk to you guys sometimes and to do some testing on the live server. But I know a few of us on the team came from the Siege Perilous server, myself included. That's where I used to play back in Ultima Online, so it's good to see some people from the good old days showing up here in Rise of Agon. And let's see what else. GFoss asks any thoughts on EXP boosts or increased gains for new players upon a Steam launch. It's something we can look into. I don't think it's necessarily something that would be necessary if we have the balance of the power gap and skill progression system intact. But it's something we could always look into. How many active paid players right now? I can't give specifics on that, but I did mention before we have consistently around 1,500 concurrent players at a time, which, you can do the math there. It's a lot more than 1,500 people that are paying for a recurring subscription or has a founder pack in order to meet those numbers. Let's see what else is here. Thoughts on adding active connections to the client? I know that that's been asked a lot. We haven't made a decision one way or the other, but there's pros and cons to that. I mean, it can be a cyclical effect if you have, if people are making their decision to sign on based on in-game population, it can have a downward negative spiral if they start seeing numbers decrease. But again, we haven't made any final decision on that. It really, our focus right now is just on getting through these first couple of weeks of launch. But I'll see what the thoughts are on the team and if that's something that we end up implementing. How much communication do you guys have with the original Aventurine developers?
Some, a little.
Yeah, a little. I mean, to be quite honest, we're really basically, for the most part, on our own when it comes to learning the game code and making enhancements. But I know that a few of us, myself included, I've known some of the developers at Aventurine for many years and kept in touch with a few of them. But when it comes to further enhancing Darkfall Rise of Agon, it's the team at Big Picture Games that's doing that.
Yeah, Claus reached out to me and just said, good luck, and he's excited that we're bringing it back, so that was kind of cool.
Tempting Fate asks about water mounts. Definitely a possibility. I know that we've talked about it. We haven't really, made any decision one way or the other or gotten any specifics, but as long as it's properly balanced, it's something that we could look into. I mean, obviously the key would have to be that boats would have to be the better mode of transportation on the water, but even if it's just for aesthetics, it'd be something cool. Let's see here. Plans to modernize the engine for performance? Yep, absolutely. We want to be able to unlock capabilities to utilize more modern hardware. Are you having any video making contests? We certainly will. I'm a big fan of community contests when it comes to from a community interaction standpoint. We've had 2 so far, or maybe 3. I can't even remember now. We've had 2 or 3 competitions so far that we've done, but we'll certainly be doing more in the future. A video competition, I'm sure, will be one of them. Any plans for analysis for the political landscape? I alluded to that before, but we're going to have a broadcasting network where we do official updates with commentary from a newscaster, where we can give kind of an overview of the political landscape and things that might have gone on over the past few weeks, prior to that video going out. So yes, we certainly do, and we'll be looking to you guys in the community for information and reports on things for us to report on. How do we feel about the cost of running the servers? Very good. I mean, servers aren't cheap, especially servers that are the kind of hardware needed to run a game like Darkfall Rise of Agon, but we spent a lot of time researching our possible options that were available, and we feel that we made a very good decision with the provider that we went with. So I don't think there's any issues there in terms of cost. Are you guys going to implement mouse wheel and the key binding? That's also something that's been asked about a lot, and the answer would be yes. It's just a matter of, again, getting to it. Scrubasher, I'm assuming a Scrubby Bear, asked, are you looking at keeping fantasy themes to stuff you add instead of like Halloween pumpkin masks and fun hulks? That's something that's really important to us on the team, is keeping the whole theme of Darkfall intact. So any cosmetics that we add, it'll be a careful balance of ensuring that there's, things that we can do to provide more diversity in the aesthetics. And that includes if we do any custom events for holidays or anything, but it's all a matter of making sure that it stays within the theme of Darkfall. We don't want to have, pink fairies as a cosmetic skin, where things that are just completely out of place in the world of Agon.
Or sunglasses.
Ugh. Sunglasses.
Cloaks. I don't know if you're referring to cloaks that make you invisible. We don't have plans for that, but we do have plans for tabards. Things that you can wear, as like a cloak, essentially, that would allow you and your alliance or your clan to differentiate yourselves from others during combat.
Someone mentioned using the assassin's hood and making it to where it reduces your ID range, so people have to be closer to be able to see your name. I thought that was a pretty clever idea.
That is pretty clever. Kind of the trade-off, right? Protection versus stealthiness.
Exactly.
Can you guys add the option to turn off the profanity filter, at least in clan chat? Yeah, Brad was testing some things with the chat filter, and it ends up that the word "fuck" got pushed live as a banned word. We'll certainly circle back to that and make changes, because there's a difference between people swearing in game and using other language that breaks our terms of service. We really don't mind on people swearing. It's a mature game. Everybody should.
I mean, fuck is a very integral word in our community.
Yeah, I mean, it's
the most universal word ever.
So it wasn't done on purpose. It was just a mistake. But
Yeah, I actually meant to patch something in that's going to prevent people from pasting in fake items that everyone gets all crazy about and saying, "Oh, it's a dupe." That was what I meant to patch in, but I actually committed the wrong file. My bad.
I think it's awesome.
It was pretty funny.
Any last minute comments, guys? I think that we'll run this until 4 o'clock, so 10 more minutes. We'll do a full 3 hours with you guys here today.
Yeah, I would stream more often, like development, but usually, I don't just sit here and do one thing in the world editor. I'm usually jumping around so much, and then on Slack and Discord, and you know, I also watch a lot of streams to see what's going on. So it's hard to always develop. It's hard to always stream, really.
Bed soap and harsh hash. We went over the house crafting system previously. I think just the quick and dirty of it is there's going to be a lot of new resources that are going to be required in order to craft both a deed draft and a seal, which are going to be required to make an actual cottage deed or house deed, etc. Whether you're in a clan or solo, you'll be able to get the resources required to make these deeds. And with the concerns on a lack of possible housing spots, Brad is going to be consistently adding in new housing plots, whether to existing villages to expand upon them, or as he's done in the past and will be doing in future subsequent patches, adding in unique houses that are off in remote locations or by themselves. Things that are really cool locations that people can try to go after to get. So I can't go over more specifics than that, but I will say that it's going to utilize our new regional harvesting mechanics as well as our enhanced dynamically spawning mechanics, and you'll be able to get these resources through a variety of different means in game. That Sneaky Russian asked, did anybody ask about large party transportation options like blimps or something? We did mention airships as a possibility of something like that. Again, it all comes down to balance, but certainly providing more ways of being able to have large groups of people go from one location to another like a ship is certainly things that we want to be able to implement and add. Liquid Tech, yes, we are all working on a volunteer basis and have been for the past 2 years. Even with launch right now, still no one's on the payroll because we got a lot of things we have to get done and get taken care of, but there will be, at least we hope, some of the key positions like some of the key developer roles and quality assurance people and other positions that are very critical to game development. We're hoping to be able to get some of our guys on the payroll. I mean, they certainly deserve it, and a lot of people have actually, some of our guys have quit their day jobs in order to be able to do this full time and still on a volunteer basis. So they're going to be the first ones that we get on a salary basis, but we're not at that point yet. Are there going to be ways for people to capture houses other than the owner not paying taxes? We've tossed around ideas, but as it stands right now in the first implementation, I don't think that's the plan. You'll be able to craft the deed itself, but once you own the house, outside of not paying your taxes, you'll be able to keep that house. That doesn't mean that we might not be able to approach ideas of like maybe chaos houses that can be capturable or that you can, fight over, but we're not at that point yet. Our first goal is getting out the house deed crafting system. Any news on UI scaling? Playing at 4K resolution, the UI in text is incredibly small. TJ, do you have any comments on that?
We'll work on something when I get into tweaking the UI some more. I have ideas on how to do it. It's just, time. But yeah, that's something that we will focus on, work with.
What about city holdings and portals that let you link to other cities and holdings? We're not implementing back in city portals like how they used to be in Darkfall Online. Our Wilderness Portal Network was designed to allow people a means to travel around the world through one-way portal systems. And one of the reasons why we removed clan city portals is because it allowed the ability to easily travel between cities that were very far from one another, which, in our mind, if you're going to own multiple cities across the map, you should be able to defend multiple cities across the map. And if you're in one location and one of your cities is getting raided or something and you're not there, then you should have either runestones that are marked there to get back there quickly, or you should make sure that you have holdings that are more close in a locale to one another that you can more easily defend. But that being said, it doesn't mean that we can't add in ways for mass transportation, as I alluded to before, like with airships and other types of methods. Will we get the Hall of Shame back? I'm assuming you mean the banhammer. We've talked about it. There's pros and cons to having a banhammer. At this point in time, we're not planning to implement one, but that doesn't mean that it's not something that we might circle back to in the future. Alpha ET Omega asks, I really want to try this game out. Any chance they will be giving out trials? We may have a trial system in the future. There's a lot of things we have to consider before we do that, a lot of restrictions that we have to put in place so that they can't be abused, but it's certainly a possibility.
Peace treaty offered.
Double flying elbow gank animation. Yes.
It'd be awesome. What about portal shards? It's a good question.
Portal shards are being. You can craft nexus entrances and exits. I'm not sure if it's in or what, but
It is. It's in.
Yeah, so that's what they're used for now.
I don't know. I can't remember if it was in Mastery or not, so people might not even know about it yet.
Do you plan on adding a kingdom fiefdom system where if you control a certain portion of the map, you get bonuses and can collect taxes from surrounding villages? Our control towers are going to tie into that. I know that TJ talked about it before, but that's one of the first big content systems that we'll be working on. They'll be coming after the player vendors. I think in terms of timing or a schedule, outside of the things that we're currently working on, like added tasks, more unique mobs, enhancements to the alignment system, I'd say it's probably going to go player vendors, control towers, and then I'd say either the siege revamp system and or the crafting, or excuse me, not crafting, but the combat mechanic changes. In terms of a timeline, that's probably what we're looking at. Does that sound like a fair assessment, Brad and TJ?
Yeah, sounds close to me. And we may circle back and change some things around, but for right now, that's pretty much what it boils down to. I see a question here about apartment buildings in NPC cities. We discussed it, and still a good possibility. I personally think it's a really cool idea, being able to rent out some of those buildings. Obviously, there's some graphical things we'd have to do. Most of those are just shells, empty shells.
Yeah, from the inside, there's nothing to them. That's the problem.
Yeah, and they're often like multiple pieces, so the door isn't even part of the actual house. So I mean, it was just things like that we'd have to go through and fix before we could do that.
I haven't had a chance to kind of really dig into kind of what's behind, like what makes a house, and kind of making new houses, quote unquote, that aren't the current houses. But once I do get a chance to do that, I will, and because it would be cool to be able to kind of make some other structures houses, more or less, and then to have different deeds for them and stuff.
All right, there's a couple here. Please add different ganks, dumb, fun spells in the future. Absolutely. I already said that in the past. We're going to be doing so. It's just a matter of getting to it. It requires resources. As TJ said before, we have some issues that we're working through when it comes to new animations. You obviously can't do new ganks without new animations, so that may be on the back burner until we address some of those animation barriers that we're currently overcoming. Lycum has asked, back to the alt question, if there is no desire for alts, why do you have plans to add crafting specializations that would limit the amount of completed crafts? Everyone's going to be able to craft essentially everything when it comes to mastery and non-mastery. The specializations are going to basically just enhance certain crafting professions. So you'll be limited to what professions you can get what we're calling artisan skills in, and those artisan skills will give enhancements to certain crafts, basically providing those crafters that are artisans in certain professions the ability to craft the most, I guess you can say, potent items in that particular craft. It may lead to some people getting alt accounts. We can't stop that, obviously, but it's not the same as having multiple alt accounts going out farming resources. Tayroth asked what plans are being made to cater to non-PvP players. I can tell you that a lot of the people on our team are those kind of players that you're talking about. And our goal is to consistently be adding in new things for non-PvPers to do, whether that's tabletop games and NPC cities, harvesting mini games that they can go out and do, enhancing crafting and crafting professions, completing tasks that aren't necessarily PvP related. There's a lot of things that we can do that we will be doing as we further develop the game. Can you do something about so many buff spells? Maybe combine them and maybe having different timers on them? Yes, we've talked about this in depth internally. We're going to be making changes to buffs, consolidating them potentially, or combining them so that you don't have to have as many active on at a time, and there's not this, pre-fight buffing stage that people go through. But that will be tied to the combat overhaul patch. And when I say combat overhaul, I don't want people to get frightened or concerned that we're going to be doing anything drastic to change the flow of combat. It's more of just increasing the possibilities of diversity and player choices that people have, and enhancing certain areas of combat that are a little bit lacking right now.
As far as the buffs are concerned, I mean, that's very, that's something that I don't think I've been a part of any of those conversations, and I've voiced my opinion before about how if you're going to combine the buffs, what's the point of having them? What's the point of having diversity in the different schools if they're all going to be just a buff anyway? So I think there's a lot of discussion involved around that still needs to happen personally, but it is obnoxious. But at the same time, there is benefit. There's a reason why they're there. So
yeah, it serves a purpose. I mean, it's hard to just say let's combine a lot of buffs, and that's a big leap in my opinion.
It's going to be a careful balance no matter what we do, and as I said in the past, we're going to make sure that we talk about these changes with you guys so we can get some feedback on them as well. I think that when we focus on combat, and that includes things like specializations and armor smithing and tailoring, because it'll be tied to obviously potential combat changes that we make, it's going to be a lot of open discussion and a lot of back and forth, because obviously it's such an imperative aspect of the game. We want to make sure that we get it right.
No, we're not limiting how many crafting masteries you can do. We're adding in a specialization on top of the masteries, and you are limited to 2 of those that will increase the right.
Yeah, think of it as like grand masteries. It's going to be basically something on top of everything that exists right now.
And it's not so much of a bonus that you can't be a good crafter without them. It's just it gives you a better chance at a higher roll kind of thing. I think that's the initial implementation.
Yeah, and there's going to be a few perks to it, not just there's better chance of better roll, more durability. Depending on the craft, there's all kinds of different things we're going to do.
There's been a couple questions on buffs, self buffs, and buff others. I think I'm going to, again, circle back to what I said before. We are going to make changes to them, and we're going to be evaluating them and how best we can make those changes. And you guys will certainly be involved in that discussion, but we're going to be holding off until we put more of a focus on the combat system itself. As we said before launch, our goal is to remove hardlock specializations and increase the amount of I guess you could say, soft specializations that are in-game currently. And so any sort of changes to things like buffs and certain spells, etc., are going to probably be tied to a more focused patch like that.
Those are pretty big changes, and we'll discuss them with the community. Pretty much what it boils down to.
Admiral Myth, do me a favor if that's the case and send me a message on the forums with your account name. MW Taylor, Taylor is how you can contact me. I'll take a look in it for you and see what's going on. No, Tayroth, that's not in the plans, but I find it funny you asked that. If you remember, I used to play in the Murder Herd back at launch in Darkfall Online in 2009. But it's good to see you around. All right, guys. Well, it's past 4 o'clock now. I think that we will cut this community live stream here. I greatly appreciate all of you guys for showing up. I can tell you that the team, those of us on this stream, had a lot of fun. We will certainly be doing more of these in the future and hosting streams like official tournaments and community events and things along that nature. So, we greatly appreciate all the feedback that you guys give us, even if it's feedback that is, negative towards a particular game mechanic or something that's going on. We do read all of your feedback on the forums. We do read all your feedback on Discord and through private messages. And that kind of feedback is going to be imperative to us making sure that we can, take Darkfall Rise of Agon to the next level and make the kind of game that you guys all want to play for many years to come. So thank you again for joining us for our second community live stream, and we will be in touch. Enjoy the weekend, guys. Have a good one.
Catch you guys later.
Later, guys.